Hit a button, Jay. There we go.
That's more than 1440.
That's more than 1440? Okay.
Yep. If the second number is higher than 1440, you're more than 1440.
It's one step down from 24K.
Yep.
4K is 4096 by 2160.
Yep.
So this is 2160p. It's not, yeah, 2160p. Yeah. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see if this works.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Yay! And all of a sudden, you hear, and the whole thing collapses.
Hasn't crashed yet.
Yeah.
I must say it looks very sharp. Yeah. Now the problem is that your videos you have that you showed at the beginning are probably only 1080.
Yeah.
So they are now upscaled a bit. That's why they're a little bit grainy. So when you come
Oh yeah. They're
the
gonna
light
be.
stuff, it could be higher color quality.
Right. They actually, like, some of them are better than others. I've noticed.
Yeah,
Like,
might be, but yeah.
Gamescape adds a little grainy.
But they're probably only 1080. So.
Laser, thanks. You guys hear us?
Yeah.
23 months all there. All right, great to hear. Almost 2 years there, man. We're getting there. Sound good everywhere. Background sounds good. Good. That's good to hear. You heard those? That's a good thing.
Yep.
It started on a new month, 1st of December. Yeah, I know. Where'd the time go, man? It's crazy, isn't it?
Yuletide greetings to all of you.
Yeah, I haven't realized that in December yet because we're still in the high 80s here temperature. So
People still have pumpkins on their porches.
yeah.
Well, thanks,
It's my
man.
whole
I'm sorry
last
to hear
weekend
that.
was get everything set.
Hey, Chantel, Elsamine, good to see you all. Mad Fergie, great to see you.
Hello. Thank you for all the awesome comments on today's Patreon posts. Yeah.
Great. Well, you got Chantel. You got to wait on Amazon Prime. You got to wait until your other sub goes because you have to be off sub to use it. That's the catch. That's the absolute catch with it. So, yeah, they want, they really don't want, they'd rather you use a pay sub, so they make it so that it expires and you get like 2 hours. It's annoying. Yeah, but it's free, so. What's the new Faye article? Well, you're gonna have to, Mike. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to catch this later on, or you're gonna have to lurk and whatever, man, because we're gonna, that'll be later in the show. I'm saying because Eric's gonna hold that off. That's gonna be the carrot. Because I know when Eric said that today, I was like, wow, that is awesome. New old content or something like it, right?
It was written in the heady days of, let's see, I even dated it. September 11th, 2002.
Wow, a year after, wow. Oh, I don't know if we're going to be giving it out because it may go into their journal too, Mike. I said we're going to highlight it tonight, right? So
We might do some excerpts.
Excerpts, exactly. It may go somewhere. It's gonna be cool. Really cool.
Also, I know I've read it, kind of like Jose wants to redo all of his art. I want to
Redo the
update
article.
things because it's in that delicious Times New Roman font. Double space with 2 spaces after every period.
Oh, it's exclamation drawing, but I haven't set the drawing up yet there, Mog, so hold off. Gotta give me a second here. I promise to get to that. Yes. Let's get folks on here.
I think it's a time getting AirPods to sync.
Let's see what we got here. Get caught up on a couple quickie announcements there. So, I will get. I'm not sure when Blue Box will be coming in, but I imagine they will. Yeah, see, this one's a little grainy because it's a lower resolution, but I'm gonna live with it. I have a meeting with Jeremy on Friday night, so I'll tell him.
I'm going to mute myself in case I blast it. I assume by going to the Twitch chat.
So, lots of great stuff behind the scenes going on as we keep things rolling here.
We're rated mature audiences?
I have to do that.
Oh, man! Woo! They knew about our fairies, Jose.
I mean, I got the artwork behind me there.
Oh, that's cool, Bones. I don't know. I mean, you should run the web. Very cool. That's 753. We're ahead of the game here.
Kind of like the resolution of their announcements. It reminds me of 80s television.
Alrighty. So let's hit that. I hit the right. I thought I was gonna hit the wrong button. We have the pleasure of getting Eric twice this week. Woo!
Yep.
Is it? Well, it could be on my end. I am streaming in a higher resolution for the first time, Alderon. So it depends on your browser. I would try switching browsers. A lot of people have trouble with the Google browser. That could be it. It seems that Edge seems to work better for Twitch for some reason, even though it doesn't work better for a lot of other things. I just don't know if that's the case. So, giving you some suggestions there.
Should we talk about the Midnight Ravens, Jose, for our discussion of the secret societies of Greyhawk?
Oh, when is that going on?
Sunday with Ed Greenwood.
Sunday.
I think that's a great one. Actually.
Yes, it's going to be a blast.
I cannot get my these AirPods to sync.
But
My
Dorgan,
phone
you should. I mean,
crapping.
you're obviously watching, so you have that option on 720 for mine, which is good. So, yeah, you should watch
I
it.
will.
So,
Question for you. Who should we go as tonight? The Winter King, the Winter Smith, or the Summer King?
winter, because winter's coming.
There you go.
Winter's coming, huh? I'm glad you have that mature rating on. Oh yeah, here we go.
There you go. I'll just duck down.
Yes, nice background. That.
Looks like it's just tied on. It looks much more impressive.
Hopefully tonight we have a really cool discussion here. I'm really excited about this one. Very excited.
Yep, that looks awesome.
I love this. The guy who lives out in Maryland makes these.
Really?
Yeah, he's had the autumn one behind me, the summer one, and I commissioned him to make a spring one.
Cool.
Designs. Met him at the Ren Fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's got a booth at the Ren Fair.
Yes, he does. And they move product, let me tell you.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
That's awesome. So we'll come on 3 minutes early tonight and just why not, right? Always good.
Why not? I'm not ready. I'm still digging up artifacts from yesteryear.
You did,
Yeah.
which was great. You dug up a whole bunch. So good evening, everyone. I'm J.K. Lord Gazumba for another episode, number 128 of Legends and Lore. And I got my partners in crime here at Greyhawk, Mike Bridges, and the great Anna B. Meyer. Welcome back. Both have been on the show multiple times in different aspects, but welcome back, both Eric Menge and Jose Ortiz. Thank you both for coming on. This is going to be an awesome discussion. And I know when Eric brought this up a while back, the timing's uncanny here with the Wild Behind the Witchlight coming out, all the other stuff that's coming out in 5e, but this is like predates that by 20 years, which is really cool. Some of the you guys were trailblazers with this stuff. So give us a little early thoughts. We'll start with Jose about this, the direction of how Living Greyhawk went and you know, just initially how you came up with this grandiose idea. And we'll see what Eric's input is on that.
So full disclosure, this is going to be 90% Eric because that was him and Diane Hazlitt were the authors of the well, and Sholem West, one of the original Triad, who we've had on the show, is one of the Barrier Geeks.
Yes.
He and Eric wrote the first Fey mod, and then from there it was Eric and our friend Diane who did the lion's share of that stuff. You know, for me, you know, I started off as a player back when the campaign started in 2000. You know, not including the prequel stuff, and that was my first introduction. I didn't write anything till year 3, and then I became Triad in year 6 after Eric had somehow maneuvered through a 5-year campaign storyline, which one of the pieces of advice he told me as he was leaving was, don't do 5-year campaign arc. So which wasn't a problem since the campaign got canceled in 2008. So I did 2.5 years.
Very, very cool. So Eric, I guess Jose said 90% on you. But one quick announcement. This is a test tonight. I am streaming in 3840 by 2160 for the first time. So we upped the resolution, and I'm going to test it here for a week or so, and then if it all goes well, we'll up it to 4K. But just note that if you see, like, look at how small my bars are at the bottom. I can't figure out how to change them, but everything else seems to be working well, and we're a little more crisp. So just note that that's what's going on. If you're having some issues, just let me know because I want some feedback on it. So yeah, Eric. So wow, you know, early on, early days. Initial thoughts on this whole direction.
The initial thoughts were, they told us we couldn't use Drow.
What a bummer for Geoff, right?
No Drow.
Oh,
I was like, what? They said, we're saving them to ruin somebody's birthday party in year 3. And I was like, actually, they didn't say that. They just said no Drow. We also could not touch a certain weird metallic dungeon in the Crystal Mist. That was also off limits.
Or the Valley of the Mage.
Yes, no mage, no mages. Was it how green is your valley would not include a mage?
So run the Grand Duchy, but not in the Grand Duchy.
So we had to make up our own.
Let's put on the spot. Who told you that? Eric Mona?
I was told by Sholem West, who was the the Triad lead before I showed up. And I wrote one of adventure for Sholem. Okay. And he said, no Drow. I said, okay, well, we have giants, right? He said, oh, yeah, we got giants. We got lots of giants. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Wow.
And I was looking for something to balance out all the giants because they are big, they're strong, they hit really hard. Sure. But I didn't want every adventure to be the same scope of combat. I wanted to feature different things and encourage people to play different types of characters. So I went 180 degrees from that, and I found the Fae, who are low hit points, low attacks, highly magical, and require lots of saving throws.
Okay.
And then it started working really well with the lore, Greyhawk lore on Jeff, how they're predominantly Flan, and the Flanay were drawn heavily from Celtic with some other influences from different societies or different cultures. And that's also when I remembered my love of a certain series of books called the Chronicles of Prydang by Lloyd Alexander.
Okay.
And that got me interested of like, could we work this into a Celtic style story with the giants? And from there, we have to have the fair folk in here. And they have to be old school fair folk. And that's what we went for. There's a lot of, they're mysterious, they're unknowable, they're capricious. They're not really big on not the Victorian style fairies.
I've never read.
And I think we captured that really well because I hammered it home in our first adventure we did with the fairies called The Gifts of the Fae, which was a 2-round adventure way back in 2001. It was our first year of Jeff where we introduced the fairies. And this adventure was designed to teach people the rules of how to interact with fairies in the Jeff campaign. And there are a lot of rules.
So I have to ask this. Was this a complete 180 for most of the people in Jeff? Like, where are the drow? Where are the I mean, seriously, this is a drastic change from when they came in. I imagine what they were expecting.
Well, like, let me just make a quick comment about that. I only after I played in the Living campaign did I actually read the original Against the Giants. During the course of the campaign, I read the original Against the Giants mods, and I got totally unbiased, but I enjoyed our version of Against the Giants more than the original version. I think it had a lot more meat to it, a lot more story depth. It was just cooler, in my opinion.
We also had to support that 5-year campaign that we never should have done.
That's exactly right.
The drow worked great for the Against the Giants series. Also, it was kind of fun to play with people's expectations because they were like, when the drow showing up? I was like, soon. Knowing that they were never coming because I didn't tell people.
Yeah, then you were begging to let them use.
Wow.
Oh, we had so many drow hints here and there, and we were totally trolling the players.
That is awesome.
Like, oh, and you find this spider. And there's this you find this whip. It looks like it's just a crop, but it's got like every tendril on it is painted a different color.
Oh man.
And that just buried the needle. You post a couple things and immediately delete it off to the Yahoo group because we're using Yahoo groups, and watch the speculation begin. It was fun to play with the players.
Man.
As you can see, fairies speak to me because I like doing that sort of thing.
Yeah. So year one, right off the bat, it's like it's a drastic change. So you had a 2-part adventure that started this off, and that set how the interaction was going to go. Okay.
It introduced the courts that we were doing, how you could pass through the fading lands. We glommed onto that one. Where is it? By my patron saint, Carl Sargent.
Okay.
Introduced it in this one, the Fading Lands.
Right.
And
okay.
That gave me the vehicle I needed
to
get into and out of Fairy.
Okay.
Because back then we did not have the Feywild. Didn't exist. And I don't believe
no, not an old one.
The Manual of the Plains had been published yet.
Yeah, Manual of Plains is first edition, so I think it is right before From the Ashes, if I recall. I thought it was first edition.
Yeah, it doesn't appear in the old one.
Okay.
If you're referring to this one,
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. It doesn't appear
there's
in
no
that one.
fairy in this.
Right. I didn't think so, but it appears in the other one. Okay.
It appears in this one.
Okay. Okay.
And you start getting hints of it in the monster mythology.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Although when I was reading through it, I wish they hadn't used the word God for the major fae, because I really don't think fae have gods the way that humans would worship, because they don't have souls, so they don't go to the outer planes. So I was much more enamored of using the word from the old BECMI. They're immortals.
Okay.
And or Eternals. So the Archfey and Titania and Oberon, although Oberon's an interesting story in Greyhawk. He hides in plain sight.
That's very cool.
He's a trickster god, right?
Wow.
He has a shrine in the city of Greyhawk. Norebo.
Right, it's Norebo.
It's Oberon's
Norebo's. Yeah. Good old Len Kafka.
So Faye had been in Greyhawk for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Although, and whether it be through the old Beyond the Crystal Cave, this one's got some Faye in it.
That's very true. I mean, that one is hugely. I mean, you could spend for every day in there. It's a year, isn't it, or something crazy?
You can see them starting to play with time.
Yeah.
And so
it's a good adventure. Yeah.
It is a fantastic adventure. I love that one.
Is the Green Man in that one? The Green Man's in that one, correct? Or
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And he shows up in ours as well.
Okay.
Although I had to play with that a little bit, because I decided that each region would have their own Green Man. There's not one Green Man for everything. There's many Green Men.
Okay.
And so each basically ecosystem, there would be a Green Man. So you could have one for the Hool, one for the Jeff Valleys, one for the Vesvi. These were just different spirits of the land.
Cathay says The House in the Tree is a face short story from Gary and Knight Errant. Did not know that. Interesting.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah, I did not know that, Cathay. Thank you for that.
So we had all these. Carl gave me the pathway we needed, which was the Fading Lands, and one of the Fading Lands he mentions was the Court of the Ring, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And then in monster mythology, he started introducing the Fey Lords, which I think today, if we introduce them, they would be the Archfey.
Okay.
Although one way you could work it is say that there is these courts with Titania and the Queen of Air and Darkness. Then underneath of them, they're the Archfey, who are smaller and less powerful than those two, than Titania and the Queen of Air and Darkness. So
to start things off, you sent me a whole bunch of picks. I know you gave me this pick with the bright winter, summer, dark. Is that a basis? Do we want to start there with that map?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to switch this over. Hopefully this works in higher resolution here. Yes. There we go. Okay. So
Ooh, pretty.
Yes. So
that Intuos tablet paid off for that. That way it could back, delete, redraw, delete. So essentially what we did, we didn't call them as such 20 years ago, but we created domains of delight.
Okay.
And so for our fairy, one of the things we developed was I wanted it to be a strange place where the players were a little bit uncertain. So we created geography that was not north, south, east, west, but was by bright, dark, summer, winter, which is an idea that I was inspired by through the Ars Magica system, which has a lot of fairy in it.
Okay.
And I grew enamored of this, these are their 4 directions. So the courts are organized by quadrants, whether they are bright and summer, or whether bright or dark, or summer, winter. So you have the courts of bright summer, you have the courts of dark summer, bright winter, and dark winter. And then, because we I wanted to keep the dichotomy of the two, of the Seelie and Unseelie, constantly circling around each other. Each court would have two faces of it, the Unseelie and the Seelie.
Okay, so that's why there's two with the arrows on each. I got it. Okay.
And one is ruled by a king, the other one is ruled by a queen, and one is from the Seelie court and one is from the Unseelie court.
Okay. I think you can tell
and
which is which.
They usually dislike each other greatly.
Yeah.
Which plays right into fairy lore.
So
but they're married.
So Seelie would be Spires of Dazzling Ice, the really nice sounding one. Unseelie would be the Biting Mountain. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Right. All right. Wow, that's pretty neat.
So we let me pull up my list. So
yeah.
For yes, the Biting Mountain was ruled by Unseelie King Tor. The Spires of Dazzling Ice was ruled by Seelie Queen Tamsin. Okay. The Home Beneath the Snowy Boughs, which is Dark Winter, is ruled by the Seelie King Marilyn, and the Pits of Sharpest Frost was ruled by the Unseelie Queen Maeve, and so on and so forth. And we get to meet a lot of these in the Jeff storyline as the players hop from one court to the next, because this was really ingrained into the entire story because of how the giants were getting all of their goblins, is that they had captured Queen Maeve and bound her in time, which is how you bind a fairy queen, is you bind her in time, because they're outside of time normally.
Can I ask
Boy, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And so the party had to go into a demi-plane, which was not in fairy, that was created by the giants, by the Sakhut, who were storm giant sorcerers, and had bound her in clockworks and clocks and ticks and tocks and chains and gears. And you had to literally break time to get her out. But then you released an Unseelie Queen.
All right, so she was Unseelie. I got it. All right.
Oh yeah, she was.
So was that the whole 5-year arc is to get her released?
One part of it was.
One part of it. Okay.
The other part of it was Owen is tied into going back to the Green Man, Grand Duke Owen, who was our ruler of Jeff, was part of the deal with the Old Faith Druids, is that occasionally the Green Man had to be rejuvenated with the life of the king.
Oh, okay.
And the previous Green Man's life was coming to an end. And it was time to renew the cycle, which meant that pull out your Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It was time for Owen to go to the stone table. He didn't. He chickened out. And so the Green Man died. And there was no rejuvenation of the cycle. And that's when the Sakhut broke free from their prison that they had been kept in, and started building their giants together and to invade Jeff. It was because of that refusal to renew the cycle.
So he had to basically he had to sacrifice himself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That happens in year 3, where the party Owen realizes that he screwed up and he has to go make it right, and there's only one way to do that. So the party has to escort him to the stone table, where the great druid of the archdruid of Jeff at this point was his sister Gwenllian, who has to kill her own brother, drawing from the Morgaine Arthur influences from folklore. This adventure made players cry. And part of it was that he had recently just gotten married to Khalees, who was one of the princesses of Keeland. And part of the way, what the party had to do is they had to go convince her to let her husband go do this, because she's not from Jeff and thought this was the stupidest thing ever.
Okay.
And part of this was having the players be the mouthpiece to tell everyone, tell the princess how to get around it.
Wow.
Tell the princess that she had to let him go and had to let him do this. Now, as with all fairy tales, there's a cheat. Owen was only half human. He was half fae. So they only sacrificed half of him. The other half of him, when it was cut free from his mortal coil, fell into fairy. But it had no knowledge of its human side, and so he rose up in the pits of sharpest frost, which was missing its king, or missing its ruler, Queen Maeve, because she was bound in time. Okay, so and there he became the Hollow Prince, an unseelie lord. Okay. Unfortunately, this means there are now two kings, and destabilize the entire portion of fairy, because there has to be a king and a queen. That was causing all sorts of chaotic magic mayhem through that part of fairy.
Wow.
The party aligns with Khalees, who finds out about this through Gwenllian, Owen's sister, and is sent into fairy on a long quest that the party gets to go help them with, to find the Hollow Prince and to reunite him. Because it turned out that Owen kind of really liked Khalees. And in one of his, in his farewell letter, he said he leaves his heart with her. And the Fae take that seriously. So whenever she finds him, she holds his heart and can give it back to the Hollow Prince, reuniting him with all of his memories and restoring Owen back to himself. So in a lot of ways, the entire Jeff story is the inversion of a fairy tale of it begins with a wedding and ends with a kiss.
And is that the year 3 or year 5 that happens? Okay, so that's the 5-year run. Okay, so I want here's my question: how do the players affect the storyline? How is your campaign going, and how is Geoff? How are the characters, and how many roughly do you have at these tournaments? 100, 50, and they're affecting what's going on in these storylines.
So I'll speak a little bit about that. For the first, for about 5 years, we ran a group of friends of mine and I ran a HawkCon, which was just a regional con that would premiere regional modules. And at the back of each module that was premiering at a convention, it had a little, what happened form that you would fill out as the DM, and the choices that the players made on that form would be turned into the triad, like Eric. And then he would read and see what the results were, and based on those results, that's how the storyline would move forward.
Okay.
So there was a couple of times where you could have really screwed up. What Eric just explained happened might not have happened that way, depending on how the players chose what they chose.
Okay.
They might not have given the death to a certain Fae character, and if they hadn't done that, then X would have not happened, and etc.
So at this time, is there a lot of combat going on with giants and the goblins too? Are you having adventures with that as well? Okay, all right, okay.
And as a
don't
player,
realize it's all interconnected,
right? Yeah, as
they thought we were totally two different worlds.
Right, right.
Okay. And then everything just started weaving together.
As a player, the first 5 years, I was playing and I was writing mods, but I wasn't involved in the Fae storyline. So there was I think a mod that Eric was running at the time, and I was playing a ranger, and I cast what was the spell?
Here comes Blue Box.
Hey, Blue Box. Where you can sense what's going on in nature, and Eric sort of whispers to me that I can sense a bunch of Fae moving to the north. And I was like, what does that have to do with anything? That was sort of like hints would be dropped throughout the campaign that the Fae were involved somehow. But you didn't find out until you played the mods all the way through.
So anyone who's just jumped in from Blue Box, this is a really, really unbelievably intriguing discussion here with what happened with the Fae and the Grand Duchy of Jeff during the Living Greyhawk era. We're looking at 2001 through 2008, 20 some years before all the Fae publications have come out for 5e, and it's just amazing stuff, amazing content. Wow. Anne is awfully quiet. She's just absorbing all this.
This is cool. Yeah, I'm learning Fae from a new perspective. This is so cool. Yep.
And thank you very much, and welcome to anyone who's new. Really appreciate it. Please, if you haven't, follow John at Blue Box. We're trying to bring up this whole community, trying to crush it here with Greyhawk content, right? And let's keep it rolling. Let's keep this whole community rolling forward. So, first 5 years, you look at that. Yep, there's actual Fae right in the Fiend Folio. Yeah, a lot of Fae pictures there in the Fiend Folio. Yeah. I love
because it's the Brits.
It's a British.
It's the
It's
Brits.
the British.
I love Needlemen. Love them. One of my favorites of all time. Thank you. Thank you all
Totally
for the
Fayhawk.
All right.
Totally
So
agree. That was Jeff. That was our storyline. It was Fayhawk.
Yeah.
it's so funny though. Everyone expects giants and drow, and you got no drow at all. You weren't allowed to use dark elves at all. You had giants, and you had them controlling all these goblins, and they don't. The players don't realize it's all interlinked. They think it's they're coming from the mountains. They don't realize it's interlinked with what happened in the Fae. So I'm going to switch back to this scene right now. By the way, if you're new, I'm finally streaming at a higher resolution. So if you're having any issues, I want to know with view. So hey, Wiley, what's going on, man? So here's your 8 realms. You have a king and queen in each. There's been issues. Queen Maeve has been taken. I got to ask a really dumb question. Is that where they got the Maeve from the boys? Queen Maeve. I'm assuming it's the same. Right?
Oh no, that's ancient.
That's ancient. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the great
mythology.
thing. That's the great thing about doing fairies.
Yeah.
Fae lore is all fan fiction and has been for 2,000 years.
I was thinking. Okay, so it's all ancient history, and that's where they got the name from. Okay. Yeah.
I was trying to echo things as often as possible from actual folklore, so it would feel true to people. So they would like, oh yeah, Lehannon and Maeve and King Tor. Yeah, they do a lot of that too in The Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
So
Great book.
how much of your content's in there, and you're like, it's okay.
Between the Moonshays and the thing is, since we're both drawing from the same sources, I can't really say, but there's significant overlap between what we did in Jeff and what is done in The Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Okay.
There is
Yes.
between the infinity symbols, the use of carnivals. We've had carnivals show up in Moonshays. But then again, lots of people do. The carnivals are fun. That's why they keep showing up.
Okay.
And having Avertoig, one of the cities in one of the towns in the House of Play, which was shaped like an infinity symbol because it was the province of the death side of Fairy, or the death side of the Old Faith gods, which was Nerul. So that was where you hit the nadir of winter, and then it's time to swing back up into spring. So we went with the infinity symbol for him. So we were drawing from the same well.
Okay.
And all these are really good. They did a great job with it. Hats off.
And it seems to get a lot of good acclaim on it, and just I love the depth that you have gone to here. I mean, this has got to be. I felt so. And Anna and Mike, what do your thoughts on this? The most unique regions and all live in Greyhawk, I think, have been Jeff and Zeef, right? I mean, Zeef.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, they're the two most, I think,
that
we've had in discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what they did was just really fantastic. So what I want to do is, in these first 5 years, you gave me a lot of artwork for really cool stuff, and Jose gave me a piece. And tell me what to bring up and discuss as to what is happening in these first 5 years, because we want to share all this with everyone so they can see it, instead of just scrolling through. Like, I'm relying on you because I have no vantage, but you have the summer tree here. How about this? So I'm assuming is this a realm? Is this one of the realms, or is this a focal tree point in one of the Fey realms? The summer tree.
It is a focal point in one of the Fame realms.
Okay.
It appeared in the House of Play, which was the setting for a Rite of Eternal Spring, where the party learns about the history of Owen and the needing to renew the Green Man. And the summer tree is the symbol of that, which is a tree that is half verdant, lush, and growing, and half constantly consuming itself in fire. It's drawn straight out of the Mabinogion, which is a book of Welsh folklore.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Mabinogion gets mentioned a lot in the an article about where the Celtic and deities demigods went wrong and where went right. And I know that there's a lot of mix. They mash in Picts, Celts, Welsh all together.
Was not aware of that.
Yeah, in that whole lore there for.
It kind of did.
Yeah.
I understand why.
And Irish too, right? Cuchulain's Irish. He's not even Mabinogion, right? So there's a lot.
No, yeah, he's on the other side of the sea.
Right. So
and they have their own folklore, which is rich and wonderful. But I understand why they made the decision to kind of group it together as much as possible, because the Celts were all over the place and they had such disparate ideas. But that's why they gave us an opportunity in Jeff to go full Wales. Also, because I did not want to see everybody wearing kilts all the time at the convention.
Okay. So you have 3 artists here. One of them is Kleinstreemer, correct?
Yep. Rob Kleinstreemer. Yeah.
Okay. A little background on him.
He was a co-worker of mine at the Small Business Administration, where he was in charge of our graphics department. And mostly by graphics, they mean bar graphs and pie graphs, because it was a Small Business Administration. And so he was responsible for doing like the layout for our brochures, our pamphlets, because our job was to get information out to small businesses to help them comply with regulations and also to help them facilitate financing and various governmental programs that were available to them. Also, he's an artist.
Yes. I mean, there's some really great stuff here. That
I only sent you about half.
Well, the good thing is, I mean, I don't think any of us, except for Jose, has ever seen any of this. I know I haven't ever seen any of this, which is this is new to the entire Greyhawk community. If you were not part of Living Greyhawk and Jeff. So I don't want to go out of order, but so how about this weight of words, jaunty hat?
Oh, yes. That was Matrocious Trickster, his hat. Okay. So one of the rules of fairies that we had developed was what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine, which is how fairies think. And the reason why is because they're spirits. So the body you interact with is all glamour. They make it up. They just dream it into existence. Fae aren't born the way mortals are. They're like sparks of imagination. And one thing I kept doing to players is if they looked at a Fae with Detect Magic or True Seeing, God help them, all they would see is like a sound wave of magic. It's kind of like the beginning of Fantasia, where they're playing the instruments and having a little thread go like that. Because that would be what the Fae would look like.
So, okay. So like would it make you go insane, a True Seeing spell?
Or turn you into a poet. Or turn insane, of course.
Excellent.
Sometimes they would curse people that they could only speak in rhyme for the rest of the event, and then it would wear off.
Oh my gosh, I'd be so terrible at that.
Good times.
It doesn't have to be good rhymes. You just have to rhyme a thing every time. Doesn't even have to just add the word "sir" to the end of everything, sir.
That is.
And so the hat is part of a fairy.
Okay.
So his hat is like the nymph Shaw. That is covered in the Moss Manual, that if you get their Shaw, they're desperate to give it back because it's kind of like part of them. It's like you have their foot.
Okay.
Now, so that is why you can gain power over fairy if you figure out which of their objects is actually part of them, part of their glamour, and therefore, if you gain control over that item, you gain control over the fairy.
Oh.
And in this adventure, you had a puck. And his name was Matrocious Trickster. And the hat size in there was just a homage to Alice in Wonderland.
I'm going to sound
which
really,
of course was an homage to Dungeon Land and Land Beyond by Jerry
yeah.
Gygax.
So here comes my
circle.
corniness. That's the same thing like Dobby, and right? Is
I
that the
was thinking
someone
that too.
exactly in Harry Potter, where they give him clothes
Yeah,
and
close.
released them?
She's drawing from the same folklore. See, fan fiction.
Okay.
So but with the what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. So to a fairy, when they look at you, they don't really equate your stuff as being yours because it's not part of you, unless it is part of you because you made it. So if you handmade something, then they would consider it yours. But if you just bought like a cloak from a store, they would be like, oh, that's not yours. You just found that somewhere. So they would have no respect for your property rights.
Okay.
But if you made something, they would respect that.
It's an interesting. Just.
So these are the rules. The Fae are so chaotic, but they do have rules and a logic that the players had to figure out through the course of the campaign. And we had a bunch of them, like what's yours is mine, what's mine is mine. Stay on the path. Like attracts like, but opposites bind, which is how you navigate fairy. If you go back to that map we had, how you travel through fairy, how you go towards things that reflect where you're trying to go. So if you wanted to go towards bright, you try to go climb upwards as much as possible, move out of forests into fields, go someplace that is just brighter than where you are, and you would travel towards bright. If you wanted to go someplace warmer, you would go towards summer. If you tried to go someplace cooler, you would start traveling towards winter. And so if you're looking for something, try to go to some place where other things like it are, because birds of a feather flock together. Like attracts like, especially in our fairy.
Wow.
And then opposites bind, which is a nod to the two fairies, to the Unseelie and the Seelie. They are balancing each other, and they have bound each other to it.
Okay. Okay, and that's what's happening.
And you can use these tricks to, if there is a fairy that likes to fly, it can be bound by a fairy that can only crawl. Or if you can find its opposite, you can use that to bind fairies. However you wanted to find opposite. I usually tried not to do that in the adventure to encourage players to come up with their own crazy, wacky ideas.
This requires a player to think almost like 4-dimensionally in the game instead of just thinking of I see something and I kill it. Right? And this is a real paradigm shift for adventuring.
It is that Beyond the Crystal Cave.
Yeah.
It's inspired by that.
Yeah. Well,
to say you have to have that. Thinking of that will get you through Jeff. Now this is only half, maybe even a quarter of our adventures in Jeff a year. There was a lot of giant smashing too.
Okay.
You got to kill lots of giants.
But just to give you a little bit of context, though, what you just heard is a little bit of the world building that Eric and the other authors did within the world that already existed. Right? You had Greyhawk, you have Jeff, but then you have the Fading Lands and the Realm of Fairy, and that was all basically built from scratch for the Living Jeff campaign, essentially. And in 5 years, I counted it up right before we came on. In 5 years, there were Eric wrote just in the Fae, there was 2 series, 6 modules, multiple rounds within those modules. So a module, for example, would be a 1-round module. That would be you sit down, you play for 4 hours. Some modules were 2-round modules, so you'd sit down, you play for 4 hours. You could either play in a row, or you could come back later and play the second half. But in total, there was about 358 pages worth of content in those Fae adventures alone, not including the other modules that we came out with. And that's including maps, that's including all the rules, that's including stat blocks. But 358 pages, of Fae stuff.
So give us, in those first 5 years we're talking about, give us an item or something really completely foreign to the thought of a normal D&D player, or an ability that you get, or something that's so out there because you're playing in the Fae that you could acquire. It could be an ability, it could be an item that was just so different to the normal D&D game.
Oh heavens! Now I gotta go look through stuff.
Well, I have up here now, begot a Fae child.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I was thinking.
Fae are thirsty.
All right, so let me bring this up here, and then let's explain this one as one of the examples. So as to I got to figure this one out. So what? All right. Wow. You have dallied with a fairy and a child has resulted from your union. Wonderful. Yes. If you are a man, the fairy mother leaves the child for you on your doorstep. Very nice of them.
Oh, yeah, they do that.
Wow. If you're a woman, you must spend 12 TUs giving birth to the child. So starting approximately 6 months after playing the adventure in which you received the begot a Fae child effect. Wow. You're slightly Fae touched after that. All right. So, wow. But you have to take yourself out of the game for a while.
For a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. You get 52 TUs at the beginning of a year.
Okay.
So you can kind of, if you don't play all 52, you can just kind of hand wave it. And if you need to, you can take 6 from one year, 6 from the other, and then
okay.
Very few people actually maxed out their 52.
Yeah.
It took work.
You had to play every week basically if you wanted to do that.
Okay. So you did have some time units then. So yeah, I saw, I remember, I think this was, you sent this to me way back. I think it was like in the 60s we did the Geoff one, and we had this. So wow. All right. So you can actually have a Fae child here, and then all sorts of fun things, I guess, go from that point on.
Oh man, we had the mistletoe is poisonous power too, if you remember that one, Jose.
What was that one?
Mistletoe is poisonous.
Yeah, you dallied with an unseelie dryad. It didn't go well for you, so that was one of the wacky things you could do. All right, I need to go pull up some ARs.
Yeah, I was just interested in some of the really crazy stuff here, and we could also show up some of these as you're pulling these up. Let me bring up. Let me bring this up because this is the whole focal point. Here we go. Is this correct?
Here we go. We got a bag of fairy snow dust.
Okay.
This special dust is light and fluffy, but cold to the touch. A pinch of the dust sprinkled on fire or thrown at a creature object acts as a quench spell as cast by a 5th level caster. Dust has a range of 5 feet, requires range touch attack to distract creature as well as the object if it's being wielded or carried. Bag can hold up to 3 pinches.
Okay. So a lot of fire extinguishing there with the dust. Neat.
And we have the flowing time of fairy. You've been caught in the following time of fairy. Upon your return to Flanace, you realize you spent X additional TUs in fairy. Which, of course, that depends upon what decisions you make in the game.
Happens.
Well, Jose, your character, your Inquisitor in my campaign, spent 4 years in the Fae, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yes. Yes, and he's also a paladin of an Inquisitor of Alator, correct? Which a lot of people may not know about that deity as well. Why don't you go a little bit background on the long arms?
Oh, so he's the character is Gahareth Longarm, and he is a Inquisitor of Alator, and Alator is the god of what is he? The god of the ritual and the hearth and ethics, specifically amongst the old faith, and so basically I sort of took one of the bad things that could have happened to you in the modules and had it happen to him as his background, so he was stuck in fairy for a long time without realizing it.
Good background development. Yeah. Very cool. But he was the long arms were a sect of paladins, or a sect of hunters. What were?
Yeah, Mage. The old faith isn't so keen on wizards and mages and such, and they the long arms specifically hunt down mages from Jeff, because he was from Jeff, that did bad things.
Okay.
And so they were specifically, with the whole dispel magic, that was their specialty, so they could hunt down wizards.
Man, we need to have another Barrier Geeks adventure. We need to do that now.
Yeah,
I'm getting, my blood is boiling now to really get.
I spent money for that picture.
Yeah, so let's do it.
Jose.
The holidays are so especially now. All the weekends coming up fall right on Christmas and the New Year's and stuff. It's really tough this year to really get some special events set. But we'll try and see what we can come up with maybe in January as well. So Eric is Old Oak Tree. It's a me. Yeah, it's
a me.
This, I'm assuming that this picture here may even change as like the main point of the first 3 years of your campaign.
That is by David Esbury. That is from a key with no teeth, which was the year 5 adventure where the party frees Queen Maeve because they're going into the demi-plane of time to break her out. And that would be the key without teeth, was a musical note, by the way.
Oh.
The title of the adventure was a riddle.
Okay.
Which should tell you what you're going to deal with when you deal with fairies.
What level are the characters at this point?
They're
roughly 10th, 12th.
No, we were low level.
Lower than
after
that,
5 years. All right.
That was the best part of being a regional, because we could only go up to level 12.
The max, yeah.
Thank God.
Good.
Because after level 12 and 3-5, it just went nuts.
Absolutely crazy.
It was really hard to challenge players. Still is in 5e. And you level out of a lot of the fairies.
Yeah.
After level 12. At that point, you're supposed to go found your kingdom, build your stronghold, and start ruling and getting 1 hit point every level.
I know some of the places we're talking about 16th level characters. I was like, that's insane. But okay. Excuse me. I just love this. I love this drawing.
So that was I was so relieved whenever they told us we were capped at 12. Oh. Also, whenever they told us we could only put out 8 adventures a year. Oh, thank God.
So one
because first year they told us we could do 12, and we did 12, and it killed me.
I mean, you didn't have to write them all.
I'm sorry?
You didn't have to write them all.
I didn't write them all. Just herding cats.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, whoop, where's your adventure? Oh, that's King Althin, by the way.
This is a Jose drawing.
Yes. So the story behind that one. This was a trick by one of our favorite villains in the Fey villain, whose name was Gaunt. He was an unseelie she, S-I-D-H-E, which meant a Fey lord. And he was determined to make more of himself than what he normally is. And the way he was going to do that is he wanted to become the reincarnation of the next Fey king of Fiddler's Green. However, the king, the way to do that is the king had his death, and he hid it so that no one could find it, because if it was found, he would die, and this whoever had the death would become the new king. Gaunt wanted that death so that he could take it and become the new king. However, he could not pick it up because he was a subject of the king. He needed the party to do it because they're mortals and they can change things. Fae can't change on their own. Mortals must intervene for them. So that statue is Gaunt in a disguise. And if you look at the base, it should say, "Give me what is mine."
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And that was a trap. The party finds the King's death. They come to the statue, and it has this. It just perfectly fits the glowing ball.
so it's like, yeah. So you put it right in his hands, and that's.
And he immediately swallows it and says, "Thank you."
That's so awesome.
And you lose the adventure.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
Couple parties fell into that, and most of them were like, "Something's not right here." But so that one was all in a hedge maze, which was a giant homage to the castle of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
So it was, they went over under itself, so the party was going down below, paths go over, hedge mazes everywhere, and Gaunt was doing a running battle with them. And that's where we found out that the fairy power, the planar powers for the plane of fairy are just broken. I don't know if you remember back in 3.5, different planes had different traits. The fairy trait, yes. Every spell cast was maximized and empowered and extended. We made Gaunt a sorcerer, and Jose was at the table.
Well,
he was one of the players.
The play test where it was decided that maybe we don't make him a boom sorcerer.
Because he stepped out and says, "Lightning bolt, empowered, maximized lightning bolt goes through the party in this hedge maze." Kablam! And this was 3rd edition, not 3.5. So he had a haste action, and he said, "Oh, that's okay. Lightning bolt is a haste action." And Jose was the only one standing because he was a ranger who had a good dex save, and everyone else was just smoking piles of boots coming with smoke coming out of their boots. And we were like, "Wow, glad we play tested that."
Yeah. I think I only survived because of that, but because I could walk into the hedge. At that point, I had the ranger ability or a magic item or something. I could walk into the hedge. The rest of the party got bolted down the aisle, and I was like, "Okay, well, let's rethink this."
All right, so sidebar, we're going to rewrite this. And we said, okay, what if we're going to make him an enchanter?
Makes more sense.
He's going to have to try to trick the party into giving him the death, as opposed to just taking it from their charred, burned bodies, which is what's going to happen at 3/4 of the table.
And this, kids, is why playtesting is very important.
I'm really just the creativity level is just so over the top here during this era. Wow. I mean, when you had these mega adventures and the mega campaigns, and what'd you get together twice a year, maybe the whole Geoff area? 4 times.
4 times a year.
Wow. What was the average attendance? Are we talking 50, 100?
A HawkCon would have regularly around 300 people.
Oh my gosh.
We started, I think, with 72 in year 1.
And just grew and grew.
By year 5, at HawkCon, I don't think HawkCon was our biggest.
No, probably not.
But we were between 300 to 500 people.
Okay.
Oh, amusing story where the Althan, the king, hid his death. At the end of the day, they found at the top of a tower, and he put it in a shoebox and put it under the bed. Because that's where mortals keep all their valuable items. So there must be something to it. And so he shoved it into a shoebox and put it under the bed because that would keep it safe.
How many groups gave him the item? I mean,
1 in 10. Most of them took it back to Althan.
Okay. So for the most
of them figured out their little spidey senses started tingling.
And that table was probably from the Grand March.
Yeah.
When you had the outsiders come in. Oh, that's really cool.
But boy, the player, this is the second time they had run into Gaunt. And he had a voice, a very distinctive voice that players learned to hate. "Hello, sweetlings. Good to see you again."
That's kind of disturbing, Eric.
I'll just say I've got friends and my wife still brings up that character from time to time, how creepy he was.
Wow.
Still.
He was so hated that when we wrote little vignettes to introduce an adventure, all you had to do is use the word sweetling, and people really knew immediately who it was.
Yeah, Jose, you
But
said
the great thing about him is he could die repeatedly because he was a fairy. And it's just glamour.
Yeah.
As long as he stays on fairy, he can rebuild himself because he's just a story.
Right.
But the moment he steps out into the mortal world,
yeah,
he is bound by mortality. There in the passing world, where everything dies.
I'm gonna jump off into the movie world again. And the second Hellboy was all fairies, right? And when they came,
that's my favorite Hellboy.
Turned to wood, right? Because they became into the real world, and that was it, right? I guess that's the same thing. They were kind of in that Fey world, and then when they came into the real world, it was over for them. It was kind of interesting, a really interesting concept. Yeah, it was really good.
Played with that a little bit. It wasn't quite as cut and dry as it was like in Hellboy 2.
Right.
It was mostly like the more powerful they are, the longer they could stay. But the weaker Fae would just immediately in actual sunlight. Stronger ones could resist for a little bit, but needed to go back, and they got progressively weaker the longer they were in Oerth.
Well, so M5, it says just said it's too bad these adventures are not available on the DM's Guild. So if you're playing in that area and there's something that you're interested in, you're not going to get everything, but you may get you may want to just talk to Jose or Eric, as I know they love, just as far
as burned everything after the campaign
right. Yeah, obviously with all
fire.
Just to say, hey, I'm really interested in this one story, this one adventure, just to see. They're not able to give you everything, but maybe here and there.
This might be a good place to gauge interest, Eric. If these modules. If this campaign were to be released again for 5e or whatever edition, Chad, tell us what kind of interest there would be for that sort of thing, because you've got all sorts of vehicles now, like DM's Guild, but this is obviously set in Greyhawk, so that wouldn't be our best choice. But maybe Drive Through RPG or even Kickstarter might be a good place to.
We can't do Greyhawk on.
Right. Obviously, it would not be
sanitize it.
We would sanitize it,
just like Carlo stuff.
Sanitize it.
Yeah,
you're saying Greyhawk some sort of
Sometimes you have to do what you have to do here.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another.
Sanitize it.
So, yes, 10-9.
Scorched Fader.
Yeah, Scorched Fey Earth, absolutely. Someone let the cat in my room, and now the cat is going. Yeah, so there we go. We got a begging cat there. It's okay.
My dog came by, and then immediately flopped down on my feet.
So we have, yes, this is an interesting Kleinstreemer.
Well, the Fey adventures would be easier than the others because they're not inherently Greyhawk.
No, that's the whole thing. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff based on ancient lore, so I think you'd be pretty safe there.
And the only part that would be Old Faith, but the Old Faith could be
that's pretty generic.
Generic.
Yeah.
That draws a lot from mythology as well. So.
Absolutely.
And history.
There's a lot of demand out there for Fae stories. I'm just throwing a little meat out there. So
I gotta finish up these Moonshays and get back to the Greyhawk I love.
Yeah, exactly. But that's hey, Moonshays are pretty awesome too.
Well, they're Forgotten Realms Jeff.
Yeah.
That's kind of my that's my wheelhouse. I like that era. It's fun. This afternoon we watched the Black Cauldron, Disney's Black Cauldron. Nice. So sad.
Just
the books are so good, and that was well animated.
Tell me a little bit about our fingered saw friend here, kind of like
10 knives.
Yeah. 10
Oh,
legs.
he was there purposely to squick the party. He's the butcher in King Maryland's house beneath the snowy boughs. And he's sitting the whole time there. He's talking to you. He's butchering meat.
Oh.
He, of course, is an homage to Edward Scissorhands.
Yes, that's what.
But you have to talk to him the whole time, and you get information. And he's telling you in the world's grossest way.
So everything's in a riddle, but this is a disturbingly gross riddle.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
We did have another one in King Maryland's house, one of the riddles where you had to unlock a door. It was 5 bolts on the inside of the door. And every time you shifted one, 2 of the others shifted. And it worked out that there was no pattern. You had to pop the hinges.
That was the only way.
That was the only way. The cheat.
Or in another room, there were some of those paints, the nice little magic paints, and you could paint a new door inside that door.
Oh,
but you would spend however long you needed flipping bolts back, and one is always locked.
So if you had to take the hinges off and take the door, I mean, that's a Bandit Kingdom thing all the way. They would be.
Yeah, they did well.
Take the door. Take everything. So Anna and Mike, you've been very quiet.
I'm just enjoying this. It's so awesome. But I'm kind of curious, how do the Fey realm fits in the multiverse of things, so to speak? Where do you put it on the cosmic map, so to speak? Or do you put it on the cosmic map?
I thought about this.
Yeah.
Think of the inner planes.
Yeah.
You have your bubble with the material in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Positive on the top, negative on the bottom.
Go back to this.
Elementals on the side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Energy is constantly pouring through through the center of it, coming down from the positive, through the ethereal, through the prime material, out through the ethereal and into the negative, where space inverts itself and it comes back out through the positive again.
Ooh.
So there's this constant battery of energy flowing.
It looks
through
like a black hole with the energy coming out of it both sides, correct?
Yes. Where is Fairy and all that? Well, sandwiched on either side, kind of in the shadow of the material, are the Feywild and the Shadowfell.
Okay.
And the Feywild is on the positive side of that energy flow, while the Shadowfell is on the negative side of that energy flow. And this means the Feywild is the land of everything that could be, but the Shadowfell is the land of everything that might have been.
Ooh.
And that's how it fits into the multiverse.
Okay.
Yep.
That's it. That's the picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the D's and Demigods does talk about the plane of shadow.
It's a good one.
Doesn't talk about what's on the other side.
So
I just assumed it's circles.
Is the Shadowfell a Greyhawk term, or is that a Forgotten Realms term?
It's a 4E term.
4E.
4E term. Okay.
4E made it into
Wow. So 4E did come up with something.
Yeah.
Good.
They came up with Feywild too.
Exactly. They came up with the Fey and the Shadow.
Okay.
Before that, it was called the Plane of Shadow, though. Basically, before it was called the Shadowfell. No.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is very academic.
Right.
And not what people would call it.
Yeah, but the interesting thing was back in the manual, the planes in the early days in the first edition, it was like the whole thing was written and described like someone from an engineering perspective. Yeah. And then comes 4E and they tell the same story and have the same sketches, but from a fairy tale perspective. Right. And that means that all of a sudden it's more accessible, easy, and you don't need feel like you need math or a degree in some sort of science in order to understand it. You can just feel it rather than understand it from a mathematical geophysics kind of perspective. So it's interesting. It's the same story, just told in 2 different perspectives. And I think that's one of the benefits of 4E. They kind of took these kind of slightly dry concept that had all the potential in the world, so to speak, and turned them into cool stuff you can just plug straight into your game without even understanding it. And I think that's really cool.
It's
expect to add on that one.
Wow.
Totally agree.
it really makes you think too. It makes you think
Yeah.
really outside of your comfort zone when it comes to
and that, I think that's the
D&D.
whole point of Fae, is to be outside of your comfort zone and in the gut feeling zone where things are just maybe not right all the time, so to speak.
Where did Fae fit into Planescape?
Good question,
That's
Mike.
the other interesting thing, because Planescape is also another interpretation of that engineering manual of the planes from first edition that took things in another direction, but that the Planescape deals with the outer planes, not the inner core and the stuff. So it's another part of the multiverse that they dealt with, but it was the basic same idea. Take these dry sketches and diagrams and pluses and minuses and make something cool out of it, and they succeeded, I think, very greatly, but they don't touch the Fey realm much, if I remember correctly. They take in other parts, and especially what they did with the center of the things, Outlands and the Sigil and that part. They really made the concordant opposition, or whatever it was called in the manual of the plane, that was the driest place of them all, and turned it into a super cool game setting. So that set the example, I think, what you can do with with dry stuff that has been developed but not evolved into gaming stuff yet.
If I remember correctly, they had put the land of the Queen of Air and Darkness in Pandemonium, and the Sealy Court was Arvindor.
Arvindor,
that's what I was.
Exactly. It has the story.
But the Court of Rings was like accessible through the Cat Lord's realm in the Beastlands, or the Happy Hunting Grounds, depending upon what tradition you had.
And what I did in my campaign, and I haven't run a campaign yet, so this is not set in stone, but I'm always working on concept and trying to figure out how I want to do it. And I've turned the Feywild into a sort of transitory plane that goes, meaning you have the astral as one way of getting around the multiverse, and then you have the shadow, the earthral and stuff. So the plane of shadow and the Fey realm are kind of parallel paths that leads into many different ways. There's lots of nooks and crannies and stuff in the Feywild, and some of it goes up into the upper plane, so to speak. And it's basically, when you're in the Feywild, you get this perception when you travel that is like a slope, a slope that goes up, and one end goes from summer, the other end goes from winter, but it's a slope down gently. Rivers always go down one direction, and so on and so forth. And then you up into the brightness and dark into the Fey dark, so to speak, and there you find gates into the abyss and the hell and all sorts of stuff, and you have also, and it's also the life enhancing, meaning it's basically built of the feelings of all the creatures in the world are there. So everything is enhanced, and it's all about perception and feelings and gut feeling and reaction and stuff. And these Fey creatures the more things that have feelings and urges and stuff, the stronger and bigger and more impressive and more numerous things are in the Feywild, and so they just thrive on it. And as soon as there's enough things that are scared, happy, loving, whatever, then the Feywild can come, so to speak, or come close. And the Shadow realm is one part of it, so to speak, meanders out into the shadow. I try to not make it too engineery, just more like gutsy, feely kind of thing.
Fascinating. All right.
Yeah, because I've read this stuff, and I read 4E, and I read Manual of the Planes and the early stuff, and I wanted to kind of, and the Planescape, and I wanted to tie in and make my version of it, so to speak, into to my version of Greyhawk, and because I love all these stories and stuff, and me as a DM, I want to know how it works. I don't want to tell my players how it works, but I need to know how it works so I can kind of present all the cool stuff that happens to my players.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with what Eric was explaining about, in fairy, abstract concepts and emotions can take material form.
Yeah.
And vice versa. You can think something into being as a mortal, because you can affect the plane that you're on, the fairy plane. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think the whole place came to be in my kind of way of things happening, the Feywild came into existence, but animals got advanced enough to start having feelings when they became like reptiles or something like that. They started to be scared and interested and started chasing others of their own kind and stuff like that. When all these kind of feelings and urges came, made the Feywild come into existence, and then life forms spill over into it, and then they started evolving independently in the Feywild, and it started to spill back and forth. That's how you got things like dragons and lots of things, elves too, when humanoids came around, and a little bit of gnomes and stuff like that were touched from the Fae, so to speak, and the Fae spilled back and forth, like the Susfor, Selene, and so on, were touched in areas touched by either more dark Fae or more bright Fae, or a mixture of the two, so to speak.
Yeah, that reminds me. I don't know if you want to speak more about this, Eric, but the concept, I kind of like what Eric did with the retconning of sort of the origin of species with certain things like goblins, which are very much, in Earth mythology, they're very much along the same lines as the Fae, but not so much in the D&D monster manual. They're not described that way. But in Jeff, the sort of the origin story of goblins was a little bit different. Eric, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Well, goblins are unseelie fairies.
Yeah,
that's how by capturing by capturing Queen Maeve, they were able to, the giants were able to get the allegiance of all the unseelie goblins. And kind of playing on akin to what you have, Anna, we had gone with the idea that Fae are in a lot of ways stories. And so the goblins in stories reproduce like goblins. Also, we drew from Brian Frode, which instead of having goblins mate and make little goblins, they bud like potatoes. So they are constantly growing new goblins all the time. And one way to have a big goblin problem is to have a small goblin problem, because they will eat everything in sight. And as long as food goes in the mouth, they make more goblins, and they will
Gremlins.
like double. Yeah, they're like gremlins.
And I also, sorry, go ahead.
Don't go. That's it.
I was going to say that I also start thinking about like different metabolisms, meaning fake creatures don't divulge food. They don't need food to live. They need emotions and feelings and stuff, not both from themselves and in the surroundings. Meaning, if there's a lot of people who feel things, if they can scare someone and make them laugh or whatever, they get energy and can heal and so on and so forth. That's why they seek company. They want to lure people. They want to scare them or make them laugh and all that, so to speak. So they thrive with other lives, so to speak, and eating food is fun, not necessity, so to speak. That it's the feeling of yummy food. They don't want bland food. They want interesting food that sparkles or tastes funny or smoke or whatever, so to speak. In order to, everything is about feeling, story, and perception, not organs and blood and stuff.
Concrete rules of physics, right? Yeah.
So we got two questions. I'm going to do Gary's first, because I think the second one that Earthscribe did is going to take longer. So Gary says, the elven connection to the Fae with elven realms that we have in Greyhawk.
Like Grey Elves.
Like Grey Elves,
Eric,
High
how
Elves.
did you guys connect the dots when it comes to the elves? Then I can come in and have my screw version of it.
The elves were from Fairy, but they were assigned the tasks by Titania and Queen Maeve back in yesteryear to guard the passageways, the bridges between the worlds. And so they pass through the fading lands over the bridges to the various worlds like Worth, and to live there to guard the passages to Fairy so that other creatures could not get in, particularly in other unhospitable planes like that were be ruled by demons or vampires or, God help us all, Ayus. And so the fairies that lived in the mortal world eventually became mostly mortal, and they became the creatures that we would recognize as elves.
Okay.
And this is over the course of
millennia.
Yep.
So the elves have been there as long as this world has been tied to fairy, which pretty much is, from Anna's point, as soon as animals started having feelings. And then the elves showed up.
So
oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna. My rhetorical question is: so did elves mess up their assignment, or they just forgot, or? I mean, I'm being very simplistic.
Who says they forgot?
Well, I'm being very, very simplistic in this question. So, to become,
it might be like the Fey Kingdom of Selene. It could be that they have been here so long, and Fey are prone to forgetting because they live in the now.
Mm-hmm.
And
now we're tying into Orthscribe's question.
Right.
So that is why that does tie in. Yeah. So the elves are here, and there's either some of them are still guarding those passageways, like maybe that's why. What's the capital of Selene?
Instead.
That's why it is where it is, because there's a major portal to Fairy there, or maybe not.
Interesting.
Maybe it was just a really nice place where the vines grew really well, so they could make great wine, and that's why the elves all set up there, and the actual place is further elsewhere.
What if the Wild Coast is called the Wild Coast because it borders all those forests that have fading lands to the Feywild?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah,
you're
so close, Eric. Yeah. I'm very close to you. I also have that the elves have a Fey connection, meaning they were originally humanoids that kind of developed in Fey lands originally, so to speak. Some sort of early humanoid that kind of spilled over into the Fey, or were originally developed from Fey that kind of got transplanted back into the prime material plane, but they keep the faith. They are born normal creatures and grow up normal, and meaning whether they're high elves or sylvan elves and stuff. Those are just cultural differences to me, not biological differences. And then they but they can reconnect to the Fae by being true to the Seldarin, so to speak, that the gods and the faith is their way back into Faedom, so to speak. They can embrace it and keep true to it, meaning stay true to the bright side of Fae, so to speak, and the Fae gods. And then when they grow older, they can convert and become more Fae after 300-400 years and become gray elves if they so choose, so to speak, and they are worthy of it. And some elves, they say, oh, heck with that, and I'm just going to go out and live normally in the world and screw all their old traditions and
so you matriculate up to being a gray elf as opposed to being born a gray elf. Okay.
Yeah, so that's how I have it in my campaign. And the dark elves, they took a different path long time ago and started infusing the lower plane, the fiend. They have some fiendish in them, and they have the original Fae, and then they embraced the fiendish and got it into. And so they have the different journey. They are born with that thing fiendish over them, but they can try and get rid of it, so to speak, by abandoning it, stay away from that culture and that influence, so to speak, and do something else and become like Dristu Urden kind of thing, meaning not the evil cultist members.
They're more than their nature. That was one of the concepts in the fairy in the plane of fairy, was that the fairy were ruled by their nature. They weren't they couldn't help themselves from doing certain things. They couldn't think of a rational path. They were the way they were, and that's just what they were. They couldn't decide to be something else. And I think as far as elves, I think my interpretation was that sort of just like a mortal could go into the fairy realm and become Fey touched, that also happened reciprocally to the elves that spent too much time in the mortal world. They became more mortal, and mortal concerns became more important to them. And at least in Jeff, in year 6 through 8, there was sort of this storyline where the elves were in conflict with each other. You had the Oitwood, you had the Dim Forests, and you had the Hornwood, and those were all ruled by different, you had the Wild Elves, the Gray Elves, the High Elves, and they were sort of in conflict with one another over, what, maybe a millennia ago would have been considered a really mortal, petty concerns that have sort of taken over, their thinking, and only the older Gray Elves remember, their connection to fairy and what that should mean. So even they had problems with the Fae in their realms when Eric's storyline sort of bled into the mortal realm, when it was all said and done, not all the fairies left, and so that caused some problems for the elves in the forests, that were like, all right guys, you got to go home now. And they're like, no, we like it here.
Because remember, Fae couldn't change without mortal intervention.
Yeah.
So any Fae that wanted to be something different needed a mortal to give them that boost, and that meant risking death in the mortal world as opposed to remaining forever trapped in your cycle.
Yeah. And
telling the same story over and over again.
Yeah, and I have it that a lot of really cool stuff, and I have it that the gray elves, they can become immortal, but then they have to move, eventually fade into the Fey realm, so to speak. They can only visit Worth on the 4 festivals and stuff when Luna is strong, and when the realms, the Fey realm and the normal planes actually interact in certain areas, and then the old gray elves can come back from back in the time, so to speak.
I love this so much.
And kind of go, and then they have to, and if they stay, then they start losing it and become mortal, and then they can go back again into the Fey realm and choose.
This might be added to my Fey lore headcanon now.
Yeah, that's how I've dealt with it, so to speak. So they kind of go out of existence and then get all sorts of Fey powers like innate magic and dark vision and a whole bunch of stuff, so to speak. The elves as they progress in that sense, but they don't have to. It's something they have to strive to do, so to speak. Stay true with it. And like Keek, Obni's sidekick Keek, for instance, he was an elf that didn't choose that. He chose to remain a normal mortal high elf, and then he will probably die at a few hundred years old or something like that, and kind of die as a normal mortal. And he didn't choose to become gray or become Fey, so to speak, when he got older.
Are you ready for a wild headcanon that's
Yes.
not mine? So this one was told to me by Brian James, who's a Forgotten Realms sage and a brilliant creator, excellent designer. He had the idea that the Seldarine were originally Archfey, and Corellin Lorethian was just another Archfey, and wanted to become, and got his idea that he wanted to become a god. And that is why he led the elves out of Fairy into the real world, because then if they worshipped him in the real world, he could gain that power and became a real god.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
This is the originally division between him and Alraushne, which would later become Lolth, because she was like, the old ways were where it was. We're fairies. We're not mortals. You're putting all these people in danger just to make yourself more powerful. I am not on board for all this. And she rebelled against him. And Corellin, in his seeking to become the greater god that he would soon become, cast her down and crushed all the people that refused to worship him in a massive religious crushing, to make sure the rest of the elves worshipped him, and he became a greater god of the elves, so that anyone that did not worship him was kicked out of elven society, driven below ground, and called the Terro, or the Drow, for the traitors, because they weren't on board with his scheme.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's awesome. I've actually, I have a version of it that the elven gods did exactly, and it's so cool that someone else. I had the same feeling that the elven gods, they were fey spirits, so to speak, meaning the original elves that have lived in Feydom longer and grown more powerful there. But they wanted to gain more power when they saw other divine beings and so on rising to power. So they actually took the elves back into the normal world, so to speak, in order to gain followers and gain strength as powers. But then Corellin did full circle. He took the other elven gods back into Feydom. So now they're just Fey lords, so to speak, that doesn't have the big power of other divine beings. That's why they have to rely on and plead to elves to stay powerful and stay true and so on and so forth in order to regain power, because they sacrificed their power in order to be Fey once again, so to speak. So they came back. So it's kind of a full circle thing that I've kind of experimented with. Yeah.
So it's kind of neat how Well, none of this is compliant with or consistent with Morgan Cain's Tome of Foes.
No, exactly. Yeah, we have to kind of you have to kind of break a few things in order to have fun too.
But it's kind of neat how you can take the same pieces and make a completely different recipe with it.
Well, that's what's
and they have completely different lore. I love that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Do we have a second question, Jay?
What there's yes. I wanted to bring up Jose, just if it links in who these individuals are in Jose's portrait here, his painting.
Oh yes, please.
Because it's the only color one I have.
You got it, Jose, or you want me to name him?
I believe, is that Meretrocious up top there?
That is Meretrocious Trickster.
That's his.
You recognize the jaunty hat
with the green little hat?
With the jaunty cap, and then that's Gaunt, who we already discussed right below him.
Oh, okay,
cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
And so behind him is the White Stag, which is a Narnia reference.
Oh.
And I use that to lure people into adventures. You see the White Stag, it looks at you and turns away and walks off into the woods, stops, looks back at you, and then walks away. Do you follow? And this is important because a lot of times I had to bring a lot of people together very quickly into the adventure. And so the White Stag was the hook into the adventure.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was like a symbol of them to follow.
Follow. Okay. If you want adventure, follow. That was the call of the wild and the adventure.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yep.
And you can see a little bit of the head of one of our nobles. She is the white bun, and you see Khalees there is the blonde one on the bottom left, and Owen is there on the left with the cloak.
Okay. Yep, very cool. So we have, I know you want to answer the Earth Scribe question, so let's do that, and I'll bring something.
I didn't want us to forget. He's been so patient.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I kind of like this one too. I'll put this up while
we're.
Yes. that
I love this picture.
That's the cutest little house ever.
Yes,
yep.
I can imagine. So it says
it's a puzzle.
It says Juff Frog Fens Progress.
Yep.
That was a piece of art. Did we use that for a special or something? Because it wasn't in the module itself, but it might have been distributed at a convention or something.
It should have been. I thought it was in.
The module has an overhead view of the map that wasn't. I didn't do that, but the drawing itself.
Me and my markers.
Yeah, I think the drawing itself was distributed at the convention because it never got actually published in the module.
Shame. So it was a puzzle where you had every frog. You remember the old Budweiser commercial?
Yeah.
Every time you jumped on a frog, it would croak a word, and you had to croak a nursery rhyme to get across. I believe you were following a lost lamb at the time, and so you had to croak out "Mary Had a Little Lamb." And if you didn't, a giant tentacle would come up out of the pond, pick you up, and fling you against a tree that had a smooth side facing the pond. And it would always hit you upside down, and then you'd slide down slowly and land on your head.
Sounds like a Scooby-Doo thing.
You can see the lamb there in on the island underneath the tree. That's the lamb.
So the people would always come to this pond, and we would always describe, and there's this tree next to you that has the bark facing the pond is worn smooth, and then give no explanation as to why. First time someone triggers it, wham! And everyone goes, well, that's why.
Gotta find the right frog.
Yep.
That's interesting, and it's cool. Another cool thing. I'm glad you shared this one with us. All right, so let's answer Earth Scribe's question there, and then I'm gonna bring the mushrooms one up here. So I like this one too. It's pretty neat. And his was using the Fae in other realms besides Jeff and Greyhawk.
Well, in other realms, other than Greyhawk, well, Fae connects to everything. There's stories. So there's constant passageways. If we're going back to Narnia, this is the woods between the worlds. You can easily get there.
Okay.
And if we go with the idea of the domains of delight, you can just make different domains facing your world. So you have different versions of fairy facing different worlds. And so these might just be the Greyhawk domains, or more accurately, the Jeff, the Fayhawk Jeff campaign that we did for 5 years has these domains, and everyone else's domains can be completely different.
And the fading lands sort of they're inseparable from the mortal realm. It's a symbiotic relationship. You know, one needs the other, and they're everywhere. They're not just in one place. So
okay. Any I'm assuming you're talking, you know, you have your fairy realms. You have Sundi, you have Selene, you know, you have Duchy of Ulick. It's not like you're going to place these in the barbarian lands, right? You're going to place these in areas that would kind of make focal point sense. Maybe what's the forest? The forest with the frozen city. Selden? Is that Selden?
Oh, you mean in the center of the Adri? Yeah.
The Adri, that's it, the Adri.
Yeah.
So the Adri, I think that would be a great place to place it.
Yeah, but I can also see that you can have small ones, just like you can have a sacred little around it, like a druid grove or something. You can have like a small little grove. You can consecrate an area and open it using either some divine spell or some planar connection or something like that.
Some places would be maybe easier to get to find a fading land and to get in there, but and some places might be almost impossible, but not impossible. You know, it's everywhere. It's just a matter of access, and some places can just access it, and some of the mortals there know how to do it better than other people, and some people have just forgotten, and you know, but it's not that they can't do it.
And I got a wonderful idea that we got from one of the adventures we played here with Brian. That he had flowers that had magical effects. So I was thinking that, okay, there are certain flowers that if they grow dense enough, they create that little bubble of fae in certain conditions and stuff like that, certain times of day or something.
Little fairy ring.
Yeah, exactly. So fae can kind of peek in and see what's happening and so on. And if you kill off the flowers, you kill off the connection.
There goes your portal. Yeah.
Yep. So you can kind of grow these flowers, and you can, by having a certain, by promoting nature and certain wildlife and stuff, if you get enough of that in one area, then you create it. So these portals can be created by nature and by life over a millennia or over a century or something like that. It's not something you can kind of do in an afternoon, but if you have like a lot of druids and a lot of other people that know what they're aiming for, so to speak, or elves can create an elven forest in a millennia, and that creates the opening, so to speak. So it's not something you do with a spell like this, but it's something you can do with dedicated work over generations. You can create the conditions for it.
Love it. Yeah.
So this picture here with the mushrooms, and they're numbered.
Yeah.
This is some kind of puzzle. I'm assuming it's
another puzzle.
Okay. It looks so cool.
Yes.
Are you ready for it?
Yes.
I had to look it up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you needed, let's see here, 7 toadstools growing in a row. Each one's special, but how do you know which one's safe and which one's fell? I made this rhyme so I can tell. 7 toadstools, each one a type, wrinkled, spotted, lumpy, and striped. Some make you small, some make you tall, some do nothing, and some end it all. The last and the first and the last may differ to your sight, but neither one changes your own height. Though they look to be a nasty pill, wrinkled and lumpy won't cause you ill. The poison lurks a hidden bane, but danger follows behind mundane.
Wow, danger follows behind
awesome.
mundane.
Oh wait, and that one was by this one. Hello. My name is Daffodil. So I'm gonna go ahead and toss that in over there on the chat. Woo!
So number 5
and
is
it's telling me I can't do it because there's too many characters.
yeah. Well, you got there close.
Well,
No,
they got to figure out the rest. You got to figure out.
Oh, wow. So you got to eat one of them.
Yep, you have to eat.
Number 5.
You think you gotta do 5?
That's my guess. I could probably did.
Essentially, this was another Alice in Wonderland homage because you had to get someplace small.
Oh, okay.
You had to go into an anthill, and you were way too big to get into the anthill, so you had to make yourself tiny.
I'm assuming.
And
I'm assuming 3 kills you.
The spotted ones make the PCs 1/12 the original size.
The spotted does.
Oh.
Okay. Spotted. All right.
And lumpy ones restore you to your proper size.
Okay.
Striped ones are poisonous, and
Mundane
wrinkled ones are just mundane mushrooms.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Now I want to make a whole flora or fauna. Since mushrooms are kind of either flora or fauna, so I'm not sure. But I want to have a whole book of it, so to speak. I want to make like 25 different species of fey connected mushrooms with cool effects and stuff. That's on my to-do list now. Yeah.
So wow, it's pretty cool that you got artwork to go along with a lot of these puzzles. That's really
so
nice.
cool.
That's really neat.
So we had the rhyme on a handout, and we found out you have to print one for each player, otherwise they all get cranky. And then you just put the image in the picture in the middle so they can all see it, and then they will start. Some of the people will start breaking out the little rules and try to figure out the logic puzzle. So we hit a logic puzzle and a fey rhyme with an Alice in Wonderland overtone.
I love this location.
Oh yes,
yes.
That would be also from the same adventure as the other one.
Okay.
Rite of Eternal Spring.
Right.
And this would be you had to get the chalice made in gold, and that's Aveg Kite. And it is the town where an aspect of Nerul lived.
Oh.
Ooh.
He's a toy maker, by the way. And that one, the party had to go collect keys out of his clockworks and then put it together. And the trick for that one is you need the key in order to open the safe that had the chalice inside of it, but he had cut up all of his keys, but before he would even tell you anything, he says, I've got a couple of these clockwork horrors out there running amok. Could you go take care of them, deactivate them, and come back to me? By the way, the easiest way to deactivate them is they have a key in their back. If you just twist it and pull it out, they'll shut down. Either way, bring me back the piece of keys. And so when you bring him back the piece of keys, he says, oh, okay, puts them to the side, and then it says, well, here's the issue, though. And he then dumps out a big bushel of keys and says, I cut them all in half, and I can't remember which piece goes to the other piece.
My gosh.
So then they get another puzzle,
puzzle
of trying to fit the bow with the bit. But because we're fairy and dicks, the actual piece that you need is one of the 3 that you pulled out of the earlier piece and is not in the pile of bushels, in the bushel pile that he just dumped out for you. So the answer solution is not in your hands. It's already in your hands. It's from what you just did in the previous encounter.
Yep.
So only if you remember that you pulled the keys out of the previous clockwork horrors do you have the piece. And then I pull out the other piece. Like, oh, here's the other 3 pieces. And that's usually when players throw things at me. Because I think it was Jose's group that blew themselves to oblivion 10 times trying to open that safe.
Really?
Could have been. Yeah, it could have been.
Well, you can't throw a dexterity save on them because they're rogues. They'll just evade right out of it. So he did a blight. And every time you stuck the wrong key in and turned, blight. Because that was a constitution save. Can't evade that.
Oh, man.
I got so many dirty looks over that one.
Be frustrating. All right, so the big reveal tonight was that Eric found an article for Living Greyhawk journal that you never got published, or you just forgot about it, or what happens, and what is it? And give us some tidbits from an entire article of content that was never shared.
Yeah, didn't get around to it.
You just didn't get around to submitting it.
Well, they, at the time, let me see if I can find it first. Well, I had gotten several other articles published. We had done the Old Faith one. We had done the Stone Circle at Greyhawk. And I was up to my ears in the core adventures set in the city of Greyhawk at the end of Living Greyhawk. We were running the election for a new member on the council, on the select council that would help elect a new mayor of Greyhawk. So I just didn't have the time to get it around, and also things were kind of flaky back then. So they just stopped publishing the Living Greyhawk, all the gazetteers, not the gazetteers, the little magazines.
The journal.
Yeah, that's it.
I think I got two here.
I got a stack of them.
Two
so yeah, these old ones.
Yep. Living Greyhawk journals. Yep.
So I was hoping to get into one of these, but it didn't happen.
Okay.
So this was a leftover from what we had.
What was the
it
title?
Had fun things such as a lot of the rules of dealing with the Fae, the nature of the Fae, how to interact with the Fae, and also different types of Fae in Greyhawk that you can run into and where you can place them. And then Chris Day helped me out with this one and designed a new prestige class for it, which was a thing back in 3rd edition, not so much anymore. Yeah. Now they would be an archetype.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of data there that people would want badly if they're going to pursue Greyhawk Fae. So I think a call to Christoph is in order, right? Get that put in our journal.
I can see about that.
Yeah.
He has a great magazine over there. I back it on Patreon.
That would be fantastic.
Best whatever money it is I spend on it.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
That'd be wonderful. Absolutely.
But the looking through choice bits of it, the big one is we have the Fairy Mage, which is the new archetype, prestige class.
Is that off of off of multiple spellcasters where you get certain skills, and then at a certain level, like 6th or whatever, is your or 10th, whenever you could do that? When was it? For prestige?
This one we geared for. It would appear to be 5th level.
Okay.
It gave you a spell level, 1 per level, so you could basically replaced what being the wizard. So you were leveled up as a Fey Mage as opposed to a wizard. Your familiar became a fairy creature.
Okay.
You could, whenever you summon monsters, you summon fairies instead of normal monsters. You could also have the ability to change shape into various Fae. And the ones you could go into were, and they would give you different bonuses, like Dryad's Grace, the Grig's Gift, the Nixie's Gift, the Nymph's Gift, the Pixie's Gift, the Redcap's Gift, the Satyr's Gift. So kind of like they were doing in Fizban's book, but with fairies for mages.
Was it ever play tested?
No.
Okay.
It looks pretty. I'm looking over it, and it looks pretty reasonable.
You could convert it back to an old school class, or convert it to a 5th edition class pretty easily. I would imagine, with some little tweaking and some limiting it early on.
I mean, there is some minor tweaking, but there's got a major downside, which is you are sensitive to your susceptibility to iron. So that anyone that attacks you with steel weapons gets bonuses on their damage against you, which would be most anything. So there were some drawbacks to it.
Okay. Sounds cool.
But you also get Enchanting Magic, where it adds +2 to the DC of your saving throws for all enchantment spells. But you suffer -2 on your DC for all necromancy spells because Fae aren't good with death.
Yeah.
They just don't get it. So there was we were doing a lot of balancing on it. Actually, maybe Chris did play test it.
It sounds really cool.
It's a fun one. And if you wanted to play a Fey touched mage, it would work really well. And I could probably read to it as an archetype under 5th edition. Have to look into that. That could be fun.
I think it's a great idea. And I don't see you. That is not. You don't even have to connect it to Greyhawk. You could publish that in drive-through rather easily, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember the old templates from 3rd edition?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have a fairy template. You can make anything a fairy creature.
Oh, I love those templates you had in 3rd edition and PF1. That were fantastic.
So it so you can have your fairy basilisk,
Mm-hmm.
and it would have let's see, you would get some spell-like abilities. You would get damage reduction, but it was susceptible to iron, and it was a very light template, so it would allow you to adjust all sorts of creatures and to give them a fairy feel without doing major revisions to the stat block, which would throw off the CR. That was the whole point of it.
Yeah.
The coolest thing is you can make everything anthropomorphic. So if you have like a giant rat, a fairy giant rat, it would have hands. And it would be like Reva Cheap from the Dawn Treader. With the voice of the Dawn Treader. So that was how we were intended you to slap these onto animals and could make fairy animals.
Yeah, they did have a watered down version of that in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, where you can make a quote unquote fairy. You have your base fairy traits, but then you can also, roll on a table as to what you look like and your different characteristics, whether you look like an insect or whether you glitter, etc. It's not as in depth as what Eric was just describing.
2 quick questions, and I got to check on my son because my wife's still not home. She's had a super late night tonight. So I'm going to, Wiley, and we kind of went over this, but Wiley asked, when did published content Greyhawk did the Fae first appear? Okay, and we can go over that again real quick. And the second one, Troy Cannibal asks, do sea sprites and nixies have portals to the Feywild through water, since that is their natural environment, or would it have to be kelp seaweed for a sea sprite? I'll be right back. Anna and Mike, you got it? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting. Were you the first? Were any earlier kind of? There was some Fade Dragon articles and stuff, but nothing really comprehensive, if I remember correctly.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
In fact, we were people were like looking at us like, "What the hell are you guys doing over there?"
Yeah.
To the point where we put the blurbs of adventures that were fairy focused in rhyme as a signal to people that this is a fairy adventure, because they were very polarizing.
Yeah.
Some people love them.
Yeah, and some people but that's what I think Fae should be. It's a love-hate. It's feelings. That's what I think. That's the right approach. But it's, to me, it's a mystery and so weird that Fae would be, since it's so central to fairy tales, folklore, superstition, meaning the bedrock or foundation of D&D in many ways, and they didn't dive deep into Fae. To me, it's kind of a mystery that didn't happen earlier.
Yet they didn't in earlier editions.
Yeah,
I mean,
they had brownies and pixies, and they had some of the monsters in Monster Manual, but no comprehensive take on it, so to speak. They didn't kind of introduce a Fae realm or anything in that sense, so to speak.
No, it's kind of pieced together.
Yeah.
Bits here, bits there.
Sprinkled. Yeah.
In the monster mythology, I think was one of the first places where you get a good dose of it, and you can thank my patron saint Carl Sargent for that one.
Yeah.
And then it shows up a little bit in Manual of Planes, and you don't even get a whole page.
Exactly. I mean, they also get that dry engineering feel of it, so to speak. So it's kind of, you get the pluses and minuses and how it affects certain spells and certain level up and stuff like that. But you don't get the feel for it. You get the numbers but not the feel.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, and just to speak to what you were saying, is that Jeff became probably one of the most, if not the most successful region for that very reason. I think people were like, what's this all about? Like, having to think differently, and more people than not, I think, enjoyed it, if just based purely on the numbers of people that would come into the region just to play the Fey mod specifically. We could still run Fey mods a year after Eric retired. After year 5, you could only run the modules 1 year after they came out. And people were coming to the convention because they knew that was the last chance for them to get the Fey mods in, and they were coming in from all over the country. And I even had a Triad member who skipped Winter Fantasy to come out and play a Fey mod because he was like, I'd rather be playing, the conclusion to this storyline than anything else that WotC's putting out. So it was pretty, yes, it was polarizing. Yes, there were some people but they were in the minority. For the most part, people really thought it was an ingenious take. It was a really cool story. And, it made Jeff a really interesting, lightning struck, and it was, Jeff was a really unique and interesting region because of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of cool because after that came 3rd edition that started to incorporate more and more of this that was during that age. And then 4th edition, when it kind of became part of D&D basic lore and basic mechanics and the basic planner outlook of D&D. And it kind of stayed that way in 5e too. So now it's a part of built into. So people that start playing 5e, that will be like, oh, this is a natural part of D&D, but didn't start out that way. But it might have been the wargaming roots of D&D that was kind of a bit contrary to the whimsical nature of the Fey, maybe.
Definitely. You had tables that wanted to come in and bash everything, and they would always just regret their time at a Fey table because it would not go well for them.
It just bashing Fey doesn't work.
Exactly.
It just didn't work. You definitely had to think outside the box if that was your style. Mm-hmm. It drew in a lot of new players because they didn't have that background, and so they would come in for the story. I probably the last couple years of the of maybe 3, 4, 5 year 3, 4, 5 was. I think I saw more new players coming in, more children playing the game, picking up the game, specifically because they liked the Fey mods. That was a big draw, and still is, apparently, obviously. Wild Beyond the Witchlight did extremely well, almost across the board. Everybody loves that sort of storyline. So I think there's definitely a gold mine there to be tapped.
And it's just so amazing. You guys were 20 years ahead.
We told the stories we wanted to tell.
It's so cool. And I'm sure that you in some ways kind of participated in building future versions of D&D with that stuff built in. I'm sure that some of the impressions and things that you wrote and stuff became part of the DNA of the later versions of D&D. I'm pretty sure that what you did played a part in that.
I always wonder how much of that. I always wonder how much of that trickled out into the world through osmosis, and people picked it up and sort of incorporated it into their games and made it up
some
the line.
of it did. Yeah.
One last question Gribbly asks about in Q1 you have Sayer CD, which is obviously an Elven Fey realm, outside the Demon Web. Is there any wants to know, is there any source connection to Greyhawk for that, or is it just through the Feylands would be the connection?
We never touched it because that was in the penumbra of the Drow.
There you go.
That's the answer, Gribbly.
No whiz on the electric fence put around it.
Right.
I would say hell yeah.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
I never really wrote anything about it in our storyline.
No touching Drow in there. Great answer.
Yeah.
Wow. So
and I want to see some connections to the Drow and some connections to the Flan and the Old Faith. are both kind of connected somehow in Ilana and Biri and stuff like that, are in some ways connected to the Fae by ancient roots and
they
stuff
didn't
like
answer
that.
Troy while I was out. I'm sorry.
Druidism has a little bit of connection to it. So
we did Troy's question about sea sprites and nixies have portals to the Feywild through water, since that is our natural environment.
We didn't answer that one.
Didn't answer that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
or would
good.
I have to be
Eric,
like kelp
what's
seaweed
your...
for sea sprite? Sorry, I was out. I did not see that. Not get.
Yeah, we got so carried away by the first ones that we kind of.
So what do you think on that one?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There would be portals anywhere that there are stories. And underwater, on the mountaintops, in mountains, in the desert, in the Badlands, anywhere that there would be that story, that focus, that the story of the Fae could somehow touch, you could easily have a portal there.
Yeah.
One of the concepts that we always had with fairy is that it's composed of everything that never was. So imagine that there's a hill and you don't know what's on the other side of the hill. And so you imagine all sorts of things on the other side of that hill. But when you walk up to that top of that hill and look down, you see what's actually there. Well, what happens to all those other things that could have been on the other side of the hill? They are pushed over into fairy. So all the stories of what might have been get pushed into fairy, which is why mapping it is impossible, because the location is constantly, the geography is constantly shifting, because it's made up of beliefs, stories, dreams, imagination. And so anywhere you think there could be a portal, like a library could easily have a portal in fairy. Oh, so easily. The back room of a fast food restaurant could have a portal in the fairy if there's enough story there that creates that connection.
Yeah, I have it that the Feywild is made up of all the impressions that all the creatures see, so to speak, basically in real time, spread out all over the place, and then powerful
we are vibing, Anna. We are very much
it's so cool. This is kind of riffing of each other, and it's kind of cool. And then powerful fake creatures, what they can do is that they can keep them there as long as they want to, and they need to, and they kind of yearn on the stories, so to speak, and you can kind of
And this is why I love dealing with the Fae and fairies, because you can bring in other people's ideas, and they don't really trample on each other. They just kind of start glomming onto each other, because fairy's a big place. And this is why I loved working with Jose, because Jose has such a great vision, and he could bring it through his, the skill that I certainly do not have, unless you like stick figure drama. Don't laugh. One of our pictures was me drawing stick figures.
It's a start.
And so he brought so much to the table with his vision for what fairy could be.
Well, thank you.
Greatly appreciate that, Jose.
Thank you. Appreciate your kind words.
When I went to go take my prolonged nap after year 5 of Greyhawk, is like, here you go. Woo! It tossed at Jose words.
A lot. I mean, it's so much content, and for those 5 years of Fae, it's crazy. Just amazing all the stuff that was done, and I really appreciate you sharing just a tidbit with us tonight. I mean,
that's the Dream Treader.
Yeah.
So that one was a ship that is held aloft by dreams. So it's kind of like it was an homage to the Dream Finder from Journey into Imagination at Epcot, merged with Dawn Treader from the Narnia books. And that bag on top of it is filled with dreams, and on board there is a dreamer who dreams the dreams to fill the bag to hold it up. And so the party gets summoned in the middle of it because they're attacked by unseelie griffins that tear a hole in the side of the bag, and all the dreams are leaking out. Even worse, in order to drive off the creatures, they have to weaken the dreamer, who is a powerful wizard and is able to scare off the unseelie. The only problem is the dreamer is now awake and the bag is rapidly deflating. So in order to save it, the party has to save the ship before it crashes. So they first have to sew the dream bag back together again, and 2, they have to put the dreamer back to sleep. The problem is the dreamer's an elf. So you have to make him Dreamy Time tea.
Yep.
Which is the puzzle. Because when you get down to the galley, they have Dreamy Time Tea, which is a giant cookbook of, so it's a puzzle to put together the right herb blend in order to make Dreamy Time Tea. And all the spoon measurements are not in like quarter teaspoon, half teaspoons. They're all a tad, a dash, and all these like a pinch, a 3-finger pinch, and you have to try to translate these into what you actually want to make a cup of tea to put him back to sleep, fill the dream bag and stuff from crashing. And oh, by the way, you're on a time limit because the ground is getting close really fast. Go.
But the coolest part about this scenario that Eric just painted is that the old wives there, or the saying, a watched kettle won't boil. Well, that's exactly what happens in fairy. Literally. So my party that I was running had no idea why it wasn't working, why it wasn't boiling, what. And my wife is still proud of the fact that she's the one that came up with, don't look at it. Everybody looked away and the water boiled.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yep.
Because we had throw in there box stacks. They say you look over the tea kettle and it's still not boiling. Because you have to tell me, the DM, I turn my back to it or I don't look at it, and then it boils.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And that is when I got a friend looked over me and says, I hate you so much.
And the light bulb goes off on
yeah. In like Fey realms, you can really trick the players by simply saying that instead of having the terrain pre-made or in an static way, you ask the players, and what they see, that's what actually there, so to speak. You have to say that, okay, you have to, the characters have to close their eyes and then the players have to describe what they see. And then if the other players say, oh, that's a cool idea, or that's kind of so on, then it becomes stronger and better and whatnot. So you can have the players without this is spilling the beans, so to speak. Now I can't use this for my players, so my players can't watch Legends and Lore. But you should play tricks like that with your players when you go into the Fey wild, so to speak. You can have all sorts of cool stuff like that that the players can actually do it without you telling. And they can only kind of walk around if they close their eyes and don't use their normal vision, because they have to use their inner vision and their kind of mental imagination to navigate around. Otherwise, it's just featureless, so they automatically get lost or something. So
wonderful. Well, this has been a wonderful discussion.
Yeah,
the 2 hours fly by.
Yeah,
we're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Oh, I just threw you the spice rack.
Yes. Oh, a Fey is so cool. Yeah.
Oh, and the little sign was that was another thing you can do with fun things with the environment. The King Maryland's Home Beneath the Snowy Boughs only has one hallway, and there's one door at the end. So to determine which room you go to, you have a bushel of signs that you hang up on the hallway. It says this way to and you put the sign up of which room you want to go to. And then when you go to the end of the room and open the door, it leads to that room.
That's really cool.
So you can do fun things like that of twisting up the how the very environment works. And when you do that, the players don't feel quite so secure, and they're like, things are weird here.
Yep.
Thank you.
And you can have like when the moon shines, that's the only time you can actually go there. If you go between the trees and any other time, then in the brightness of Luna, then you go somewhere else.
Yeah, but gotta give them a riddle so they know that. You know,
yep.
They can figure that out.
Yep.
So who knows? Maybe we'll go in a little more depth in the near future, or do something. Get a Fey game up somehow. You know, that would be awesome.
That's one of my to-do list. I have an Elven Fey campaign.
Yeah,
that's on my to-do list. Yeah, the Vespi. I want to do the Vespi.
I don't know if my guys can handle it.
All right, Eric.
Yeah, it would be tough.
Let's get to writing.
Yes, get to
writing. Are you ready for a quote?
What's that?
Are you ready for a quote?
Yes, please.
Yes.
From this article.
Yep, let's do it.
The nature of the Fey. Fays are contradiction. They are old yet eternally young. They are giving yet selfish. They are free yet bound by rules. They lie but tell the truth. They have bodies but are merely spirits. They are creatures of twilight and gloaming, equal parts bright and dark. They exist between the night and morrow. To understand the Fey is to release human reason and perspective. Since this is impossible, A perfect understanding is likewise impossible.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Good place. Good coup de grace there, Eric. And thank Jose and Eric. Thank you so very much for what a.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
so
This
fun,
is
so much fun.
I mean,
Yep.
but this is deep. This is really deep on another level. And note that this all took place, back from 2001 to 2005 and beyond, to 2008, and so it was a wondrous time for living Greyhawk for the Jeff region. So let's see what everyone's got going on in their little worlds here. We'll start with Mike, because I know Mike's quick normally.
Yeah. So Jeff, I need to do that sometime. Just like Anna said, some kind of elven, Feywild something.
Yep. Just running UK1 again is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. That this topic is something that has always interested me, but I've never put into practice. And like you, Jay, I don't know if my players would dig it or not.
Yeah.
I would play it.
I'd play a one shot, but I don't know, full campaign. I think my guys would poke their eyes out. I'm not trying to sound facetious or anything. I just think my guys are not patient people.
So yeah.
Yeah, but it would be really a challenge.
So no, nothing going on, but I might be looking on my bookshelves for anything inspirational now.
Cool. Maybe we can get a blog post out of Mike out of this.
Not likely.
I tried trying to get past 1001.
There is a guy on Facebook who's doing that Darlene map without the hexes.
Saw that.
Yeah.
I was very tempted to post about that because that's a great idea.
That is a fantastic idea. Yep. He's
Very
doing
cool.
a great job. Yep.
You might go for it, man. I think everyone would love to hear about it. Love to hear about it. So, Jose, what's up? I'm gonna link your once again. I'm gonna link your website here for everyone.
Awesome. I'm Jose Jedge Ortiz. You can find me on Twitter at Jedge Ortiz Art, or the website that he's about to put up. I take commissions. I'm working on a couple projects actually right now that I can't talk about, but I'll be putting them out on Twitter and on the website when I can. And I am gonna convince Eric that we need to get cracking on. We've been talking about re-releasing the Fey stuff in a campaign format in 5e for a while now. So if there's it seems to be that the interest in this sort of thing is still around. So we might be doing that in the near future.
I think you could.
Oh, so cool.
I think you can make it setting neutral, and it would be beautiful.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for coming on. And you're still you're still taking commissions, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So
I haven't booked you up yet.
What's that?
I haven't booked you up yet.
Oh, not promising it'll be ready before the new year, but.
So, Eric, what's going on with you? We're going to see you again very shortly, and I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, we'll see you again.
So much fun.
I will be this Sunday. I will be sitting down with Ed Greenwood. We'll be talking about secret societies. And since I cannot hope to keep up with Ed Greenwood in the Forgotten Realms, I will be championing the Greyhawk side, my first love.
Awesome.
Where I spent most of my formative years, and kind of drifted over into Forgotten Realms because it has a very strong gravitational pull. Other than that, I am a DM at the Games Tavern online, which is a stream game. They were doing The Night Below by my patron saint, Carl Sargent, where we're exploring the Underdark. And I have gotten to work in a whole segment for Illustrate E, who's the one part of Forgotten Realms I would love to drag over into Greyhawk somehow.
I did, Eric. It's simple. You just bring her over. That's all. I mean, she's a deity.
Eric, it's pretty simple. It's Control-C.
I have a specialty priest class of Illustrate all written up.
Cut and paste.
Cut and paste. Oh, why did I think of that one? I'm wrapping up the Moonshays, which is Jeff Forgotten Realms version, except that one I'm getting to draw from Doug Niles, another one of my patron saints. He's a great writer, great developer who invented the Moonshays. And we did a 60 adventure campaign set there.
60. That's insane.
That was more than Greyhawk, actually.
Wow.
Because that was only 8 times 4 or 8 times 5. So that was math 40. Yeah, 40 adventures. So this is an extra 20. That one is a fantastic set with the coming of the slain from the Shadowfell, while the Eladrin city of Conador is fighting them in and they come from the Feywild. So it's the shadow versus the color. I mean, lots. And in the future, this May, I get to go to RPG Travel, which is sponsoring an 8-day trip to Ireland.
Oh, nice.
Asked me to write a mini campaign that you get to play in each night with the various events while you tour Ireland, that we're going to then interweave with the story of the places that we tell where we visit.
Awesome.
So
that's cool.
We're going to go see the Book of Kells and the Harp of Brian Boru, and possibly even the stone. The Blarney Stone.
Blarney Stone.
I'm going to see how much I can weave these all together.
Plenty of source material. Plenty of source material.
That's awesome, dude.
And they're also going to treat me for a trip for Ireland. Woohoo! I've always wanted to go. I keep going to Wales instead. And otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Eric_Menge. I will warn you, I am very sporadic on Twitter. I can only take so much of it. It gets me down after a while.
Yeah.
And I want to read about happy things and crazy things, and Twitter's not really good for that.
Keep that Discord channel open where you, Anna, me, and Ed, and Tony, and are all in there. So that's that. As long as that stays open and we keep the discussion going, that's perfect. And the one with Jose and you and me too, so we can keep communications open. I can.
Oh yeah, and last thing, this guy Jose is trying to talk me into writing a Fey Adventure campaign revision.
Yes.
We'll see how that goes.
Oh, it's
I think he's almost got me there.
It'll happen.
He's very persuasive.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And Anna, what's up?
Okay. Oh, that's tons of stuff right now. First of all, I have to thank a lot of people that came into Flannery's Geographical Society and have really enriched the discussion with lots of cool stuff. Like Jay mentioned, or Mike mentioned the project of removing the hexes on the Darlene map, which is a really cool project.
No one ever thought of doing that.
Yeah, I thought about doing it, but then I thought, I kind of, it was a lot of work, and early on, and then I was, what the heck, I made my own map instead of removing the hexes. Kind of that was not because it was less work, but I kind of, after a while, I realized that I needed the hex in a way. So I kind of, but it looks really cool, and if you can colorize it on top of it, I think it will look fantastic. So it's kind of a cool project. And then we have some, this is interesting because when we talk, especially on the fantasy cartography show and stuff, we talked about different approaches to fantasy cartography. A lot of the artists like Jared Blando and most, I would say most fantasy cartographers approach it from the illustrative side. It's more like a painting. They treat it like Darlene did her map of Greyhawk as a painting, and they approach it from the artistic side of things. But the cool thing is now we have a couple of people that came into the Flanders Geographical Society. Came from the opposite side. They came from the mathematical projection, calculating formula side of things. And it's interesting, first, because I always feel like I'm too much of an engineer when I talk to these artistic people that come in and are way more artistic, like Jose and a bunch of others who are fantastic art illustrators. And I feel like I'm the kind of the boring kind of doing math stuff and stuff. But now all of a sudden made me feel like, there is a little bit of artistic in me too. So now I can really sense that I'm in the middle, so to speak. I'm less formulaic than the cool people that know every formula there is to know about the map making and then the artistic side of things. So now I can sense that I'm truly kind of have one foot in each camp, so to speak, which is my type of approach to it. So thank everybody who makes that Facebook group so cool, and so many awesome stuff coming up there. So I need to post even more and follow there. And now it comes to things that is coming. I'm going to publish the first batch of the new updated heraldry is coming public for everybody to enjoy, and there's more coming. And the latest barbarian shields I did was really, I got a lot of good reception, and I think they're really cool. They are like round wooden Viking-esque shields with
cool.
flaky paints on them, so to speak. So they kind of, I think that turned out cool. This is the 3rd generation, and burn marks for the Frusti barbarians. So they were kind of cool updates. So they got me the taste. I'm going to do, I have another batch in the making, and there will be another 10 or so coming fairly soon.
And there's a bunch of Patreon.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
They look so good.
Yep.
Next generation.
And then more coming. So the first batch, I've released 2 on my Facebook group, but they will come. The first 10 or so will come very soon. The first batch I did, and I think I've done about 30 or so far. And I did the Olman and 2 of heraldry of Hebmona Land. I think that were really they look really cool. They're coming in a while too. So they look really cool. And yeah,
follow her Patreon, it's worth it.
Thank you. And so that is coming, and I'm I also posted today, I posted on my Patreon blog the first look at the map update, the terrain, Hebmona Land, and a bunch of others. And there's 2 little hidden realms built into the new terrain that I have kind of detailed the story and fleshed out a little bit. And it's kind of cool. One is called the Boval Islands, and those are small islands that are east of the Grendep Bay, southeast of the Thelonian Peninsula, way out in the Solnors. And the reason I introduced them is that for my campaign, I needed somewhere for the Sual barbarians to have survived during the Ice Age that I introduced between like 5 and 3000 or 2000 BCY, so to speak. So the Sual barbarians needed somewhere to hang out in the meantime. So that's why I invented these islands. And since during the Ice Age, the ocean level was much lower, so those were, instead of 3 little islands, they were actually one much bigger island. Yeah. So that's where they lived during that time, so to speak. That was tundra and boreal forest back then. And then they kind of moved north and settled where we know them today, so to speak. That's part of my campaign story. So I introduced them, and they're way outside of the Darlene map, so not introducing anything new. So if you stick to the Darlene map, you don't have to worry about my little introduction at all. You can just ignore them, that they're outside of the map.
So they're like the Doggerland of
Europe. In a way, yes, exactly. Yeah, but now it's the former hilltops, so to speak, and mountaintops are the only thing that sticks over the current ocean level. So there's like 3 of these islands that are now rocky and some forest. They're cold, a bit like the Faroe Islands in climate and style, so to speak. So with a bit more trees. And then there is also the original name of another set of islands are the Rifkas. They are further south and even more further east. And that they have another similar story that I'm also going to detail. I've used the island models that were the first islands I developed for my Patreon back before it was even, when it was just a map technical thing. I did a set of islands, and they kind of turned out cool. And I was like, how am I going to use them in Greyhawk? And I realized that the Lendor Island and the Spindrifts are kind of cool, but I wanted something that was way further out. And then I looked into my model of planetary model and the Ice Age. Then all of a sudden the Flanese coast were much further out, and there were a bunch of other islands, just like the Doggerland, so to speak. There were a lot of island and landmass further out that was exposed, and that was back during the time of the Urflan and when the Flan had their heyday, so to speak. And so the Flan, they kind of moved out and found new cool islands out in the ocean, that because there wasn't that far. And then when the Ice Age kind of faded away and the climate became better and the oceans rose up again, it was only the hilltops that, so now these islands, the Rifkas were from, instead of being a huge group of islands with really large, like 1/10 of Hepmona land or something like that, way bigger than the Lindor and stuff, just became a little speck of 4, 5, 6 small islands, one big and 4 or 5 little small ones out there in the ocean. And that's where a couple of the Urflan cults survived, because it was only the vicious, angry ones that took over these lands after the other ones had fled or been slaughtered, so to speak. So there were some Urflan cults out there. And then much later, there were some brave sailors and adventurers of Erdi that wanted to see what was out there in the ocean when the Erdi came, and they settled what they thought was some cool islands out there, but there were some nasty folks there. So they had to retreat to one of the little islands. And then they found out that there was one other little island that where they had a monastery of surviving Flan that was not part of the evil Urflan. And this is one of my friends who came up with that. They brew a special kind of a malt beer or some sort of brew every 100 years that is very potent and really cool, so to speak. And so these seafarers already, they got hams of some of them and went back with them, and then that was something that the Overking really liked. So he needed new ones. So they established little colonies. They had a few people that could come with a batch every century with these things. And so the Overking can drink something really, really exclusive and present. And the problem was that they couldn't settle on the main island because the Urflan, the cults were so nasty. So they actually settled on one of the smaller islands. And so the main island is still kind of, it can be a bad situation. So that was something that I wanted to introduce as a small little realm. You can send your adventurers to get more of that yummy special drink that only comes every 100 years, or something else, so to speak. So that was a little bit, and they call it now the Estolda Islands, because that no one remembers the Rifka name that the Flan originally named the islands. So those are two of the small little realms that I added to the map. And then there's expansion in a little bit in the west and up in the north, and the whole of Hepmona land too. So there's more coming. Awesome. So the Meyerhawk, there will be a whole write-up of these islands eventually. So yeah.
We should have an ancient history, legends, and lore with theories.
That would be cool.
Yeah, we should. Yep. Yeah. And there will be a live mapping stream on Friday, as usual this week. So yeah.
Awesome, Anna. Thank you. I'm gonna go quick here. Tomorrow night, normal game night. Venture number 934. We go back to the Narwhal area in the Wild Coast, and it's Rangers of Arkwood. This is a Creation's Edge game adventure that just recently came out that I modified greatly for my campaign in the Gnarly Forest and that area. So we're gonna have the Narwhal Headhunters go there. It'll be multi-weeker, and to show you some of you've probably seen the terrain out already. This is an unbelievable piece. That's a 3D print that was highly modified for the Dryad tree. Speaking of Fae. That was done by Build-A-Master Crafter. That's the top.
So cool.
Yeah, that was the top of the ancient shrine, an ancient shrine, and completely, really well done. So it's going to be it'll be a fun time, and that's tomorrow night, normal time 7:30. It's wonderful, wonderful work by him. All right, then we got the big Sunday one. The legend himself, Eric Menge. I'm sorry, Ed Green.
No.
Ed Greenwood returns for another Gabbin. Secret Societies, and we'll have some fun there. Eric and Ed, myself and Anna will be chatting away on Secret Societies. Yeah, I will provide my little detailed content I have. It won't be much, but because Ed just when he gets on a roll,
he rocks.
Plus Ed. Plus, Ed has guaranteed some really cool Greyhawk lore to add that he's going to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's 7 o'clock Sunday evening. That'll be great. We don't have a topic for Legends of Lore next Wednesday. We'll get that. But down the road for the holidays, let's talk about what's coming up for the holidays. The Fantasy Mapping Show, which we have once a month. Alyssa Faden, Anna, and myself on a Friday night, 8 p.m. This time we're talking sponsors, publisher's perspective. So they're going to talk about what goes into what they look for in maps, how they, the whole process. So we're going to have people from Troll Lord Games and Frog God. Zach from Frog God's confirmed. We're trying to convert Steven Chenault himself from Troll Lord right now, working on that. It's going to be an extravaganza in giveaways. It's going to be holiday cheer everywhere on this one because we're trying to make them both outdo each other. Talking about probably the most giveaways we've ever had in one show that night for the 17th. And then the night after that, the 18th, I have a Saturday night special with the Slav Squat Squad. I can't even say that. The ladies and Josh Pop, we'll have that. The Dead Never Rest Easy will be the adventure. The Mandy, Little Bones, MJ Russell is going to join the group for this time, and Myriad X, Josh Zarathon, as Darling Creepshow has a family commitment and can't make it, so that'll be the group for that night. So that's enough talk from me. Let's do the giveaways and let's raid. All right. Thank you all for a wonderful show. Really fun.
I gotta get
go
going.
for it, Jose. We'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you very much.
Guys,
seeing you.
This was a lot of fun.
All right. Talk to you
guys.
soon. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's do the giveaway here. You get your choice of 2 of these 3. Morning Kane's Fantastic Adventure, Country Sites, and City Sites. All right. 2 of these 3, you get your choice on this. Let me close this out. All right. Woo! Closing it out. Of course, I'm going to crash the stream. The winner tonight, Kai. As long as Kai's on to claim it. Kai Brightwing. Kai's on. Let's see if Kai. There you go, Kai. You tell me which 2, and we're good to go. We're going to raid into Careful Cantrip, who we had on the show on Sunday's DM's Roundtable. So thank you all. Eric, thank you. Mike, thank you. Anna, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. This
See
was
2
so
of you
much
in
fun.
a couple nights, Sunday evening. So
I know you're gonna set up. I'm gonna set camp in your guest bedroom or something.
Yeah. Yep.
Hopefully,
so much fun.
Everyone have a great night and keep on gaming. And I'll see you tomorrow night for a really cool adventure start. All right, have a good one.
All right, take care, everyone.
Yep. Thank you for the compliments here. Let's raid in. Let's raid into Careful Cantrip. I'd love to get 75. That would be awesome to raid into them tonight. Let me get up here. Let me pop up this. Raid.
Started low, but
Oh yeah. Remember, we got a lot of coming in from outside sources and stuff too. So 73. That's great. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll see you all tomorrow night.
Take care.
Let's get this up. Still
Cantrip. Yay.
He just double, no, 200%.
Yes, at least.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Oh, Eric, this was so much fun. Thank you, Eric. This was awesome to have it, and Mike and Jay to have this
That was
discussion. I
fantastic.
love